Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad. You are looking at a live view of Slick 41 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, and a live view inside the White Room as we are counting down L-4 hours, 3 minutes, and counting till the historic first ever crewed flight test of Boeing Starliner. Taking a wide view look at the pad. If it's your first time here, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the launch pad, and here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you joining us here live today. We are going to be listening in to NASA and ULA mission control as we count down over the next 4 hours to this incredible historic flight. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream, invite people to join us as we watch history of the first two crew board the Boeing Starliner and head up to the International Space Station. We'll be staying live through the entire launch coverage, bringing you the latest updates, answering your comments and questions in the chat. But first, as NASA and ULA prepare to launch two astronauts to the International Space Station on Boeing Starliner, let's listen in as they begin their Launch America programming.
Good evening, and welcome to NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida for NASA's Boeing Crew Flight Test, or CFT. I'm NASA's Megan Cruz.
And I'm Dee Russell with Boeing Communications. Also joining us today is NASA astronaut Nicole Mann. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Megan, Dee. I'm so excited to be here, a part of this historic flight. Go Starliner.
Yeah, all three of us are very excited, and we're excited that you can join us today to watch and follow along for the next few hours. Because again, today is only the 6th time NASA astronauts will launch on a new spacecraft designed for crew. And it will lift off on a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket, which ULA just finished fueling cryogenics a few minutes ago. Now, both Starliner and the rocket stand ready on Launch Pad 41. You're seeing a beautiful view there from one of our helicopters at nearby Cape Canaveral Space Force Station's Launch Pad 41. And the last time an Atlas-class rocket sent humans to space was 61 years ago for the final flight of NASA's Mercury program.
Over the next 5 hours, we will walk you through the launch of today's flight test. NASA and Boeing want to certify Starliner for regular flights to the International Space Station as part of NASA's Commercial Crew program.
Nicole, why is it so important to have a second commercial spacecraft that can ferry astronauts to and from the International Space Station?
Megan, it's so important. What we need is dissimilar redundancy taking astronauts to the International Space Station. That allows us to not be reliant on just one company or one rocket. It provides that backup capability so we can continue to have that sustained presence on the International Space Station and do all the science and technology development that we need for future missions like Artemis to the moon.
Yeah, it's such a great platform, and it's great that we get to utilize it in such a way by supporting the Commercial Crew program and what it's trying to do for the space station.
Yeah, the partnership between government and commercial industry is the way of the future.
Yeah. So obviously, everyone, Nicole knows a lot about the Commercial Crew program, the ISS, Starliner, and their two astronauts today, Commander Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams, and that's why we asked her to be here with us. And for those who might not know, so Nicole was first assigned to this Boeing Crew flight test in August of 2018. Not only was she trained to fly it, but she was an integral part of its development, along with Butch and Sunny. However, she was later reassigned to NASA's Crew 5 mission, which launched in 2022. She became the first female commander of a NASA Commercial Crew program launch and the first Native American in space. And while on board the space station, she and the crew conducted hundreds of experiments and technology demonstrations. She also performed 2 spacewalks, totaling 14 hours. After 157 days in orbit, she and her crew splashed down safely off the coast of Tampa, Florida. And today, now, you are here to watch your friends make history, Nicole.
It is really a special day. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's very important to me because it's a great example of how our teams work together. Boeing, NASA, all working together to create an amazing spacecraft that has this capability to launch. And it's really that team concept. Astronauts may move on and fly other missions and come back, but we're all one big team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, there's a lot to learn about this crew flight test. That's why we have an entire team here to show you and walk you through the before, after of this entire mission. So just a few miles away at the United Launch Alliance's Advanced Spaceflight Operations Center are ULA's Dylan Rice and Boeing's Lauren Brennigy. Both will monitor Starliner and the rocket for us. Down the road from them at Hangar AE is NASA's Daryl Nail, who is monitoring the weather and NASA's oversight of launch operations.
And back here at Kennedy, we have NASA's Antonio Jaramillo to speak with key players in this mission. Plus, we have a team in mission control at Johnson Space Center in Houston. NASA's Brandy Dean, Boeing's Jim May, and NASA's Rob Navius will monitor flight controllers as they guide Starliner on its way to the International Space Station. But for now, let's head back into the suit-up room. We got a live view at the top of the broadcast, but let's go back in there now because that is where all the action is happening. And right now we have a live view of pilot Sunny Williams there. She's sitting down, talking to some technicians that are in the room with her. Nicole, what we are waiting to see right now, obviously they are suited up in their intravehicular suits, but we are expecting to see a pressure check on their suits soon, right?
Absolutely. So there's a huge team of folks from David Clark and NASA and Boeing that are all working together to make sure the astronauts' suits are perfect prior to launch. And so they will get suited in. You can actually see Butch there. He's in the recliner with a visor down. He's going through his first leak check. So it looks like maybe he's kicking back and relaxing, but actually those suits, when they're pressurized, it's more comfortable to be laying back. Otherwise, you have some really hard pressure points. And so he's going through that leak check now. They're testing the integrity of the suit prior to launch.
Yeah, so they're blowing air into the suit to inflate it. That's why we see him inflated there, and that's why his visor's down, because we're making sure that it maintains the right pressure for any issues that they might have. The suit has to protect them.
Absolutely. It is their life support system, really. And so should there be a problem in Starliner, they will close their visor. That suit can inflate, and it has the pressure and also the air supply to keep the astronauts safe in the event of emergency.
And Dee, Nicole mentioned David Clark, so that's the company that worked with Boeing to design these suits we're looking at, right?
Absolutely. So they worked closely with a veteran astronaut, Chris Ferguson, to come up with the details. It is a lot lighter than the traditional NASA astronaut spacesuits. It's about 10 pounds lighter. It's very minimal. You could see on the left side, right under maybe their name, that's where the umbilical will go in, and that's where the air would go into. The chippas, which is a soft helmet. The new thing about this suit is the helmets are actually attached to the spacesuit. It's actually like a hoodie, and that's where the communication cord is connected to, so that they're able to talk to flight control during their mission. And then, of course, they have gloves, as most suits do, and these gloves are touchscreen sensitive, as we do have a screen on our capsule.
And it looks like Butch is about to unzip his helmet there, so it seems like we've had a good leak check there. Speaking of Butch, again, Commander Butch Wilmore, NASA astronaut and retired U.S. Navy captain, was raised in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, married to Deanna Wilmore, and they have 2 daughters. As a naval pilot, Butch racked up more than 8,000 flight hours and 663 carrier landings, all in tactical jet aircraft. He completed 4 operational deployments, supporting missions like Operation Desert Storm. Before his selection to NASA, Wilmore was on exchange to the Air Force as a flight test instructor at the Air Force Test Pilot School at Edwards Air Force Base in California. Speaking of space, Butch is a veteran of 2 space flights as pilot on Space Shuttle Atlantis in 2009, and then in 2014 he served as flight engineer for Expedition 41 to the International Space Station. So far, Wilmore has spent 178 days in space and performed 4 spacewalks. This flight test will be his 3rd mission to the ISS. A great background of experience there, Nicole, to really be the commander of a flight test.
Absolutely. All the experience of both Butch and Sunny as aviators, as naval aviators, and as test pilots, they've really been such a critical component to the development of Starliner as their experience, their decision making. And I love what Butch always says, you always ask the question why. And asking that question why and learning more about Starliner has helped grow this program into what's going to be a successful launch today.
And Sunny Williams, CFT's pilot and a retired U.S. Navy captain. NASA selected her as an astronaut in 1998, just 2 years before Butch. This will also be Sunny's 3rd mission to space, making her the first woman on a test flight of an orbital spacecraft. Her first trip to the ISS launched in 2006. She served as a flight engineer for Expeditions 14-15. She then returned to the orbiting lab in 2012 and was commander of Expedition 33. Sunny has more than 50 hours of spacewalk time, the second most cumulative time by a female astronaut. So far, she has spent 322 days in space. Before NASA, Sunny was a former naval test pilot and instructor, logging more than 3,000 flight hours in more than 30 different aircraft. Williams grew up in Eden, Massachusetts, and is married to Michael Williams. She enjoys hanging out with their dogs, working out, hiking, and camping, as well as working on cars and houses.
You were talking about how Butch is always asking why. Sunny has always said that that's actually something she really admires about him, because she fully trusts that he's going to get down to the bottom of everything and figure out why we're doing things and why it's the best way to go about things.
Absolutely. Butch is always going to ask the tough questions. And if you have, one thing training with Butch is if I had a question or I wasn't sure, he always pause, let's ask, let's find out why. He has that patience and that attention to detail to get down to the bottom of it.
Yeah, that's why it's so important for our crew to develop that relationship, because Sunny says she really trusts Butch and trusts his decision making. And now, right here, we have a shot actually of NASA astronaut Mike Fink. He's the backup pilot for this mission. And Nicole, a fundamental part of NASA's commercial crew program and getting Starliner to this moment, really, Fink was.
Oh, absolutely. Mike Fink has been working commercial crew since the very beginning. Before he was even assigned to Starliner, he was in charge of the astronauts that were working that program. So he's had a fundamental role in its development as well, and it's great to see him in the backup role today. And then he's also assigned as the pilot for Starliner 1.
Yeah, Starliner 1, the first operational 6-month mission to the space station after this crew flight test and certification of the Starliner spacecraft. Fink is known for loving to take pictures, so I bet you he's snapping. He's snapping a picture of the crew now.
Okay, that makes me laugh. He is the best at taking photos. In fact, I told him yesterday I drove by the pad and took a photo, and I texted Mike, and he sent me the first picture that we took together in front of the Atlas V, which is pretty special.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I know he's there in a monitoring role, right? Because as he prepares for Starliner 1, it's really important to see how everything shakes out for CFT today.
Oh, for sure. But he's also the ASP. So he's the astronaut support person in the room. And so his job is to make sure Butch and Sunny have everything that they need for launch. Of course, there's a team that's helping them out, but he has that special eye to know, okay, this doesn't look quite right. As a crew member, he has that kind of inside knowledge, and his forefront of his mind is the safety and success of Butch and Sunny.
All right. Now, if you have any questions about this mission over the next 5 hours, we invite you to send questions our way using the hashtag AskNASA. All you have to do is go to one of our platforms, Facebook, X, Twitter, Instagram, and again, use that hashtag AskNASA to send in your questions. We look forward to hearing from you and answering those questions live. Let's go now to United Launch Alliance's Advanced Spaceflight Operations Center, or ASOC, where ULA's Dylan Rice and Boeing's Lauren Brennicke are listening to all pre-flight operations right now. So guys, how's everything looking?
Well, Megan, the countdown is going incredibly smooth right now. It's been nice and quiet in here when you consider all the important jobs that are going on around us. It's amazing that it is so quiet, but that's what we want to hear. Dylan and I are in a really unique spot here at ULA's Advanced Spaceflight Operations Center. We're able to look down over the control team, the launch control team down here, and if you see us right there in the middle of the room, that's us up in the window. And we're also able to be right in the middle of the mission directors who are over to our right and the engineering support that's over to our left. So we're in a great spot to be able to track this countdown for you today. We're also going to be bringing up the public operational communications that you might hear us refer to as loops or nets. So you haven't heard them so far in the broadcast, but we're going to bring them up now. And we just want to let you know that as they come across, our commentators will be pausing to make sure that you can hear them. It's also our job to wear these headsets you saw us in and listen to some of the chatter that's going on in the background. That way we can translate things for you as they happen and follow along with the nominal procedures. So far in the countdown already today, the Starliner Control Center is starting to shift control of the spacecraft over to mission control in Houston. The pad team has been cleared out for a little while the rocket was being fueled, but they are back on the pad now and preparing it for crew arrival. Our teams have also been cycling the thruster valves, and they're now in open position. This is the third time, of course, for Starliner to launch, but the first time that we're going through all these procedures with the crew members. So that's why we're coming to you 4 hours before launch today to be able to walk you through everything. But it is important to remember this is a test flight, so we are going to learn a lot, and it is our goal to make things more efficient for future crews. So Dylan, how are things progressing with the rocket?
Well, Lauren, Atlas V and Centaur are fueled and ready. The rocket was rolled out to the pad this weekend where it was connected to the propellant storage farms, air conditioning, and other pad utilities. Our countdown started at 11:14 a.m. this morning. And we powered up the rocket, began all of our final checks of our avionics systems, and then started the final preps out at Launch Complex 41. All that work wrapped up around 3:30 p.m. We got into our cryogenic tanking hold at that point. And with the launch vehicle ready and the cryogenic hold completed at 4:34 p.m., we picked up cryogenic tanking. Cryogenic tanking takes about just under 2 hours to complete and went very smoothly today. The vehicle right now remains in stable topping and all pre-launch checks are basically complete. The readiness poll has been completed for pad entry, and the blue team is, as you said, arriving at the pad now. Today is the 100th launch of the safe and reliable Atlas V rocket. It's the third flight of the 172-foot tall N-22 configuration. This rocket is equipped with a dual-engine Centaur upper stage, which is a configuration that's uniquely capable to deliver the performance needed for that specially shaped trajectory that maximizes crew safety for Starliner. Rocket processing activities are sequenced to the T-clock. So right now we are at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. T-clock stands for terminal count clock. So what that indicates is that right now we're not performing any significant processing of the rocket. The L clock, which is what you see on the screen, or launch clock, is counting down from L-minus 3 minutes, 3 hours, 47 minutes down to T0 for our instantaneous launch opportunity at 10:34 and 14 seconds this evening.
One thing I really love is that it's the Atlas's 100th launch, and it is the first crewed launch for CST 100. So that is our lucky number of the day. If you don't know, CST stands for Crew Space Transportation, and the 100 represents the 100 kilometers up. That is the space line, the difference between Earth and space. So, of course, you'll hear us refer to it as CST 100 some, but we do call it Starliner now. That is the fleet name. So let's get a check-in with NASA's Daryl Nail at Hangar AE. Daryl?
Thank you very much, Lauren and Dylan. And here at Hangar AE, the management for Commercial Crew Program is monitoring all the systems, including the weather. We just got a weather brief just about 20 minutes ago from the launch weather officer for the 45th Space Wing, Brian Benson, and it's looking pretty good. In fact, it's looking excellent for the local area here at the launch pad. You can see in this shot off in the distance some clouds off into the horizon. We may have some stray cumulus clouds that could form out there, but other than that, that is the only concern when we go into this launch tonight. The fact is that we've got winds that are onshore pushing the sea breeze storms, which are very normal this time of year here in Florida. They're pushing them well west of us. In fact, there's some storms firing up to the west, just west of Orlando, which is about an hour's drive of here. Thunderstorms are starting to form there. They have some lightning that is in the area, but all of that is not a concern according to the launch weather officer. Now, there's two areas that we're looking at, and the first is the launch pad. You can see from this shot right here, the seas look great, the sky looks good. And wouldn't want to put 100% because
I have you loud and clear on one.
Roger that. Blue team has arrived at CAT level 12, performing white room toxic vapor and O2 checks.
Roger.
Okay, so there you heard the blue team is up at the 12th level.
3 hours, 45 minutes.
And so we are 95% go, with the only concern, as I mentioned, cumulus cloud rule, temperature 72 degrees. As far as the little bit of elevated risk for the ascent abort corridor. This is the area up the northeastern seaboard of the United States. There is a cold front that is leaving the area. It has created some cool water in that area. And the search and rescue teams are monitoring that. It's below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, but that's not something that's going to be able to stop the search and rescue teams for Det 3 from going in that water if, for some reason, the crew capsule boards into those waters up the near the Canadian maritime provinces.
Go ahead, Slick.
The CST 100 commanding transferred from BMCC to MCC CST.
Roger.
All right, with Butch Wilmore in his seat, getting ready to do his suit leak check, we'll toss it back to Megan at the host desk.
Yeah, so right now we have Butch sitting there. His suit leak check is actually complete, as well as Sunny. So this is kind of some downtime that they have here, right, Nicole?
Yeah, it sure is. There's a little bit of what we call it slop put into the schedule so that if they needed to redo a leak check or something like that, they could. But they're running through kind of in their minds all the last things that checking the configuration of their suit and all their pockets. And I'm sure they're saving time for maybe a card game.
Okay. And I do want to point out some pre-launch traditions because we here at NASA love to honor history and traditions here. So we want to show you one of those pre-launch traditions. This one is the addition of Butch and Sunny's mission patch to a wall inside of astronaut crew quarters. You can see Butch finding the perfect spot for where he wants it, right on top and in the middle.
Right on top and in the middle. That's great.
I love that you're laughing because this is very Butch-like, as I gather.
Rightfully so, though. I mean, it's the first flight, so that's great. You can see all the other patches from the SpaceX launches down on the left and right sides there.
Right, so your patch is there.
Yes, on the right side, I think it's the third one down, Crew 5.
Perfect. So now we see Sunny signing around the patch, and now Butch. This happened on April 26th, just a day after the crew arrived at Kennedy for launch. And just, again, a great opportunity to honor the history of these launches and also to continue with tradition.
Absolutely. And you see there's plenty of room there for the follow-on mission patches.
That's right. That's right. Lots more launches to go with NASA's Commercial Crew Program.
And speaking of their mission patch, Butch and Sunny designed it together, and every detail has meaning. So the 7 stars in the background represent each astronaut who traveled to space as part of the Mercury program. The astronaut symbol at the bottom between Butch and Sunny's names represent all who will follow in their footsteps after this flight. The orange border is a nod to this being a test flight. Earth's blue marbling represents Sunny's love of the ocean. And of course, you have Starliner and the Atlas V rocket there in the middle, with the ISS above it signifying Starliner's first destination in space. We have teams at Mission Control in Houston monitoring Starliner's flight to the space station. Let's check in with NASA's Brandy Dean and Boeing's Jim May.
Thanks, Dee, and welcome to Mission Control in Houston. And I'm NASA's Brandy Dean.
And I'm Jim May with Boeing. We're incredibly excited to be here today with the flight control team that will be seeing Starliner safely through its first ascent with crew members on board. The team's been training really hard for this, working through literally hundreds of simulations, and they're ready to get Starliner into space.
Yeah, the team today is led by Flight Director Mike Lammers, with Flight Director Rick Hempling working alongside to assist him with keeping an eye on weather. And on Lammers' other side, we have Canadian Space Agency astronaut Joshua Kutrick acting as today's Capcom. He'll be speaking to Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams on the team's behalf, and he has a special interest in this flight since Kutrick plans to be on board Starliner the next time it launches as a mission specialist on Starliner 1 crew.
LT, this is Luke.
This team's been on console since about 3:30 this afternoon, working closely with the teams in Florida. Just under 4 hours before launch, once everything was activated and ready for them, the Boeing Mission Control ground control team handed control over to these folks here, and they'll be the ones sending commands to Starliner from now on.
That said, although they'll be busy, you won't hear too much from them as they move through the countdown with their colleagues in Florida. Some of the key calls they'll make include switching Starliner from ground power to battery power, and then with the crew's help, activating the launch abort system. And of course, Mike Lammers will be speaking on behalf of his team when he gives his go or no-go to the launch conductor during the final poll 7 minutes before launch.
At liftoff, they'll work hand in hand with the ULA team, who will be controlling the Atlas rocket lifting Starliner into orbit. For the first minute and a half of flight, we'll have Atlas and its solid rocket boosters providing the initial lift to get Starliner to orbit. And then later, the second stage Centaur engines finish the job of getting the spacecraft into orbit.
They'll be done with their job about 12 minutes into Starliner's flight and then be jettisoned 3 minutes later. After that, Starliner will be on its own to make its journey to the International Space Station.
So let's take a closer look at the details of what to expect during Starliner's ascent, coming up at 10:24 p.m. Eastern tonight.
Ascent begins at T-0, liftoff, the end of the countdown, and the beginning of the mission. Shortly afterwards, at T+12 seconds, the rocket rolls, lining up Starliner with its target orbit and putting the astronauts in a heads-up position. Then, around T+40 seconds, max Q starts. That's also known as max aerodynamic pressure. This is a critical time when the atmospheric forces reach their highest. Next, at about +1 minute 35 seconds, the two solid rocket boosters run out of fuel and burn out, and about a minute later they separate from the booster. The Atlas booster engine continues to burn for almost 2 more minutes. Then at approximately +430, booster engine cutoff, or BECO. About 5 seconds later, the booster separates and so does the ascent cover on top of Starliner. At around 4 minutes 45 seconds, the Centaur upper stage ignites, continuing the push to orbital speeds. Then a little after 5 minutes, Starliner is free of the atmosphere and doesn't need additional aerodynamic support, and the aeroskirt is jettisoned. After a long 6+ minute push from Centaur, main engine cutoff, or MECO, happens around 12 minutes after liftoff. Then, when Centaur successfully separates almost 15 minutes after launch, ULA's job is done. But Starliner is not quite in orbit yet. After a 16-minute coast, Starliner ignites 4 of its orbital maneuvering and attitude control, or OMAC engines, for the orbital insertion burn, and then 31 minutes after liftoff, the ascent profile is complete.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. L-3 hours, 37 minutes, 3 seconds, and counting till the historic first flight of Boeing Starliner with a crew on board. We were watching there a video about the ascent profile that the Atlas V vehicle will take Starliner on in just over 3.5 hours. We're going to continue listening into NASA and ULA Mission Control and some of the incredible people they have on as we continue to count down to the launch of Boeing Starliner.
The progress of Starliner's preparedness for launch and the countdown for the crew members on board the station to be awakened at about 2 a.m. Eastern Time Tuesday morning. Once the 7 station crew members are awake, they'll move right into preparations for the arrival of Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams late Tuesday night. High on the list for the station crew after their wake-up call will be the stowing of equipment currently housed in the passageway between the forward end of the Harmony module and the hatchway through which the Starliner astronauts will float as they enter the station following docking. Tuesday afternoon, there'll be a pair of mission management meetings, first by Boeing management to assess Starliner systems following launch, and the initial series of OCCs. Those are the operational checkout capabilities the Starliner crew will conduct to ensure that the vehicle is ready for docking. Following that meeting, the International Space Station partners will gather to give final approval for Starliner to press ahead with the critical phase of the rendezvous that begins tomorrow evening with the terminal phase initiation burn. So it's a busy 24 hours that lies ahead. We'll be here every minute to keep you posted. And by the way, at the time of launch tonight, the International Space Station will be flying 260 miles over southern Belgium. With that, we'll send you back to the Cape.
Thank you to our colleagues over at Johnson Space Center. We are now 3 hours, 35 minutes, 10 seconds and counting from liftoff of NASA's Boeing crew flight test.
Go ahead, flight.
I'm ready for hold call authority comm check.
Proceed.
Stand by for voice loop reconfiguration.
Roger.
Nicole, really quickly before they start, what is this poll? Or not poll, I'm sorry, check.
Yes, they're doing all the
35 minutes.
These are all the comm checks to make sure that the control rooms for the spacecraft, for Houston, as well as the rocket, are all in sync and have good communication.
As we wait for that comm check, we are outside now, looking at the crew's ride to the launch pad. Because
LC,
before,
SMD on channel 1 for a comm check.
I have you loud and clear on channel 1.
I have you the same, LC. SMD out.
all right, we're actually going to go back inside because the card game is happening. And Nicole, talk us through what's happening right now.
Okay, so there in the middle of the screen, you see Joe Akaba. He's the chief of the astronaut office.
LC
and
flight, comm check on air to ground 1.
I have you loud and clear on channel 1.
Copy. I have you loud and clear on CST air to ground 1. This completes the hold call authority comm check.
Roger.
And they're playing a game called SCAT, which is essentially 31. You want to get 31 in your hand of the same suit, and you can decide to pick another card, or if you think you're close enough, you can knock the table. Looks like Sunny just knocked the table there, so maybe she thinks she won. Butch will get one more try to see if he gets 31, and then we'll see.
And why are they playing a card game? Some people might be watching and going, wait, what?
Yeah, maybe it does seem a little odd. It's tradition goes back, I think, as long as I've heard, at least some type of a card game, or, for example, for our launch, Josh Cassada, our pilot, he did a card trick. So it's just, if there's time, we do it. Of course, if you're running behind, you would skip the card game, but it's just a nice tradition and a chance for the crew to kind of take a breather before walking out to the rocket.
And the purpose usually when they're playing a game is the commander has to lose, right?
Yes, you want that to be, the worst thing that happens that day.
Yeah. So it looks like Sunny, I don't know if maybe Sunny won, because really, again, I don't think Sunny has won because they continue to play.
That's what I'm thinking. They're just dealt another hand, so we'll see.
Again, another pre-launch tradition that dates back quite a bit. And we wanted to bring you back into the suit-up room to show you this because it is a moment of levity for the crew before everything really starts to ramp up before launch.
And it's really great, these traditions. Sometimes you lose where they actually start, but sometimes they've been carried on for decades and decades. And there's a lot of little traditions and big traditions, but it's a big part of NASA and our launches to space.
While we watch them continue to play, I do want to mention one thing, because obviously we see their helmets hanging off the back of their suits. There was a dream that Butch kept on saying that he was having, more of a nightmare, I guess, where he was saying, oh, I think he won.
Well, looks like it.
He won. Yes,
oh,
thumbs up. That means go.
Okay.
That means go. We have some cheers from around the room. Sunny's happy to lose or happy to win. I don't know who won.
I'm not sure. Maybe they changed the rules. They look happy either way. That's the most important part, right? Like everybody's smiling there.
Back to that story. So Butch was having this recurring nightmare where it was launch day and he couldn't find his helmet. So I'm sure he loves the fact that this helmet is attached to his suit.
Yeah, that is good. I think you still need your chippa though, so the earpieces they still need, but that'll be in their helmet bag.
Yeah.
Thank you, LC. Minor comm issue with blue team, but it is resolved now.
Roger.
And so you just heard that call out. Basically, the blue team, just to set everybody's understanding of some of the loops that they'll be, or some of the announcements that they'll be hearing over communication loops, is the blue team is the pad that's out. The blue team is the team that is on the launch pad right now, prepping the pad for Sunny and Butch's arrival. We're watching them take some photos with some folks who are in the suit-up room there, and they're holding some roses, Nicole. Do we know anything about that?
I'm not sure if they're for support folks, or maybe they're for their family. When they walk out here of the astronaut quarantine facility, then their immediate family will be there waiting for them, and they'll get one last chance to chat with them before riding off in the Astrovan.
Yeah. I do know that this particular crew has always said, really, this is a team effort to get to today, so I'm sure they are very appreciative. And yeah, those might be for folks they want to honor today. And as you mentioned, the Astrovan, Nicole, the Astrovan is going to be Butch and Sunny's ride to the launch pad. You're looking at it right now. It's parked right outside of the Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building. Crew quarters is right inside of the ONC. NASA chose the company Airstream back in the 60s to create a crew quarantine vehicle for when astronauts returned from the moon. The picture you see there, President Nixon talking to the Apollo 11 astronauts inside said quarantine vehicle. And then during the shuttle program, Airstream created the first generation Astrovan. You see it there, a 27-foot motorhome that transported astronauts across KSC to their launch pads. You see Butch smiling there, one of his previous missions. Sunny also rode in that Astrovan.
And now here's a closer look at the new Astrovan. It's wrapped with pictures of Starliner, has a license plate that says Ride to Space. When the doors open, steps fold out. The inside can seat up to 8 people. There's those steps. And there's with the room for the astronauts, portable air ventilators that keep them cool. The Astrovan also includes TV and a sound system so crew can watch or listen to whatever they want on their way to the pad.
Looking like a pretty comfy ride there, Nicole. You jealous?
It's pretty sweet. It's a pretty sweet ride.
So again, that is parked right outside.
I love that Ride to Space license plate. That's cool.
Yeah, that is. It's always nice to see these personal touches, you know, and again, to bring in some fun, right, to a historic mission. Now, Nicole, we're outside again of the ONC building, Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout building. Can you talk to us about the crowd of people that's there now?
Oh, absolutely. So you'll see Butch and Sunny, their immediate family, will be there watching the launch, and then you always have a support astronaut. And for...
Oh, it actually looks like they've already left
and
the
they're
suit-up
matching.
room.
Look at they're matching their picture in the elevator. That's awesome.
That's great. Yeah. So there you have Commander Butch Wilmore and pilot Sunny Williams. They've left the suit-up room a couple of seconds early. They've walked down a hallway and are now in an elevator to go down to where you're seeing now. They will soon walk out the doors that are to the upper left side of your screen. They'll greet the crowd there before getting into their Astrovan. So again, Nicole, what were you saying about the people there?
Yes, of course. There's always astronauts there supporting the family. So I think flying in space is one of the most important things we do. And the next thing after that is supporting our friends that are flying to space and supporting their family. So you'll see Steve Bowen, who is supporting Butch's family. And they were classmates of the astronaut class of 2000. And then Doug Wheelock is supporting Sunny's family, and they are classmates in the class of 1998.
Wow. Yeah, it's so nice to see the familiar faces, you know, just to, again, get one more moment with your loved ones before a really important historic mission ahead of you.
Butch and Sunny have been training on Starliner for years, and Starliner training takes place at Johnson Space Center, where they can simulate just about anything they may experience in space, even zero gravity. They performed a lot of their training inside a real-size mock-up of the Starliner at JSC, which just happens to be right across the room from a real-size mock-up of the International Space Station. And just down the road, they spent hundreds of hours inside of Starliner's simulators, running through various possible scenarios they could face during this flight test.
Now, Nicole, Butch and Sunny are, likely waiting right outside of the doors now. We expect them to walk out at 3 hours and 24 minutes before launch. Do you remember how you were feeling in this moment?
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, we walked out those doors a million times just being here at Kennedy Space Center for work and staying in the quarantine facility. But when you walk out and open those doors that final time before leaving the planet, it's really special. I remember feeling excited to see my friends and my family, but also feeling a really strong sense of calm because you know you're prepared and you are ready to go.
So we'll be watching the clock to see if they're too excited to wait for the mark that they are.
Who would come running out first? Would it be Butch or Sunny? What do you think?
You know the answer.
Okay, maybe they're together, kind of right out. I'm sure we'll also see a lot of NASA leadership here at crew walkout. Now they'll have to stay down kind of towards the other end of where the Astrovan is because they have not been in quarantine with the crew. But it's always important that we have our leadership at NASA coming down for lunch.
All right, let's try to squeeze in a social question. We have Danny on Instagram asking, what exactly are they testing?
Well, Danny, they're testing everything. It's a new spacecraft. Of course, the spacecraft has launched uncrewed before on the Atlas V rocket, so we have great confidence in that system. but the crew on board, the integrated system with all the life support systems and our ECLIS systems, which is your cooling and your environmental system. Of course, and then the piloting of the spacecraft. It is a fully automated spacecraft, but it has a lot of manual capability. So Butch and Sunny will be flying manual test points, and it also has a fully backup capability as well. So they'll be testing all of those components of the spacecraft during this mission.
And to set the stage for, again, the moment of Butch and Sunny walking out these doors. Again, the ONC building here at Kennedy Space Center. Inside was crew quarters, that same suit-up room that we have been watching them suit up in. NASA has used that very same suit-up room since Apollo 7 in 1968. That was the first manned mission of the Apollo program, so a lot of history there. And then those astronauts, as we said, for the missions subsequent to Apollo 7 have been walking out the doors, as you see now. Here they come, our CFT crew, taking their first steps outside for their historic flight test to the International Space Station. Commander Butch Wilmore and pilot Sunny Williams.
LC Slick on channel 1.
Go ahead, Slick.
Hatch open, ops complete. Confined space checks are nominal.
Roger.
You can hear Butch there saying thank you for everyone for being there. He said, let's fly. They're now walking over to their respective areas, right? Again, we have family and friends here to see Butch and Sunny. Everybody looks really happy, smiling, excited. They'll have a couple of minutes here to chat with their family and friends, Nicole, before we expect them to get into the Astrovan and drive off at 3 hours and 20 minutes from launch, so about 3 minutes from now.
And you can see they gave the, looks like they gave the roses to their family.
That's a nice touch.
And then you can see other people that are watching or observing are kind of staying back behind that line there just because of the quarantine that the astronauts have been in for the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, there's sections, right? There's the first section of people who have been in quarantine. Second section might be extended family who couldn't do the quarantine. And then we have the media, of course, covering this historic launch.
And this is a special moment. I mean, it looks like it's crowded there, but it's really a private moment that you're kind of have with your family to exchange some words and give some final words of encouragement for those that are staying back on the planet and for the person that's leaving the planet as well.
Yeah, both Butch and Sunny have said, you know, they have included their family every step of the way of their mission. So really, they feel like their family is ready and excited and happy for them to embark on this journey.
Absolutely, and your family is such a big part of this. Your immediate family, of course, your extended family, then your NASA family and your Boeing family. It's really everybody working together and supporting each other is the only way we can make these incredible things happen.
Yeah. Less than 2 minutes from them to drive off to their launch pads. I do want to point out who's going to be getting in the Astrovan with them. So we will have a driver. His name's actually Rodney Perry, and he said, I could not pass the opportunity up to drive astronauts to a launch pad. I don't blame him.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And then we have a backup driver who's going to ride passenger, monitor, again, those communications that we're hearing over the loops, the nets, just to keep tied in with the operation. He said that Butch and Sunny are just down-to-earth fun people, excited to, again, play a small part in their mission. And then also Fink, NASA astronaut, is going to ride with them. Can you talk to us about that, Nicole?
Yeah, so again, in that astronaut support role, Mike will be with them all the way up until they get on the elevator to go up into the launch pad, and he's there to just answer any questions they have, help them out in any way. It's nice having kind of just a person, a colleague that's there should you need anything. And then, of course, Spanky's taking notes on everything because, as mentioned before, we're always learning and improving our processes. And so he will take any lessons learned back for his launch.
And we're watching now as Butch and Sunny give air kisses, air hugs.
You can see they have a visor, a film kind of protective layer there on top of their visor. Mm-hmm. That's Velcroed to the back there, and that's just so the visor doesn't get scratched as they're moving around to the launch pad, and then they'll remove that protective visor when they get into the spacecraft.
That makes sense. Thumbs up to everybody. They're like, let's get out of here, guys. A hug there for
3 hours and 20 minutes.
one of you guys' colleagues, right, Dee?
That's right. That's Megan Donaldson. She works very closely with the astronauts. She's our astronaut liaison and ensures that they have proper interaction with our teams to encourage safety and to remind everyone that this is a crewed flight and this is who we do it for.
Now she's closing the door. The stairs are going up. We see the backup driver getting into the passenger seat.
I always expect the the Astro van to zoom away or something, but for some reason it always drives so slowly. I guess safety first, right?
Exactly. I was just going to say safety first. We have speed limits here on Kennedy Space Center.
Yeah,
don't
we
you
take those very
don't you
seriously.
encourage people to beat those speed
Of course
limits?
not.
I'm sure everybody getting situated in there. The windows, they look opaque, but actually the astronauts can see out of them, right, Dee?
That's right. So they'll be able to have views of the entire Kennedy Space Center as they ride to their pad.
And what a beautiful time to be riding to the pad. We're about to see sunset here. Golden hour.
Absolutely. It's gorgeous. And it's always fun because you drive out to the pad and there's a lot of locations, especially coming by the vehicle assembly building where the streets are just lined with folks waving and cheering you on.
We expect the drive to take about 20 to 25 minutes from here to Launch Pad 41 on Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. So not on Kennedy Space Center property, just next to us. Again, about a 20 to 25 minute drive. How are you feeling on that drive, Nicole?
We were definitely excited. I was in a car with Josh, as I mentioned before, who was our pilot for Crew 5, and we had a music playlist that we listened to. But we picked too many songs, so we had to kind of like rush through to the next song because we wanted to get all those songs in. We had some songs that kind of hype you up, some songs that had some like special, personal meaning to us, and then a couple songs that just as a crew was something that we really enjoyed together.
Speaking of music, both Butch and Sunny obviously wanted to have some music to get them in the mindset as well. Butch said epic movie songs, which I'm sure doesn't surprise you. His phone has, he said, over 300 epic movie songs. And then Sunny has said she's more of a country pop kind of gal. So really that vibe is just, kind of relaxing with family on the beach. So that's kind of the music that they've been listening to get them in the mindset for today.
Absolutely. I mean, you're definitely focused on, launch and the upcoming mission, but the ride over gives you just a chance to kind of kick back and reflect a little bit about all the work that's gone into preparing for this moment, all the teams of folks that have been working hard to make sure that this launch is as safe as feasibly possible, and then also to reflect
17 minutes
on your family and what a critical component they are to this mission.
Seems there might have been a slight delay, but now everybody is back in, and we are off. NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams now en route to Cape Canaveral Space Force Station's Launch Pad 41 with a full security escort. A beautiful aerial shot there to show you the convoy that will take them to their launch pad. Now, I remember, Dee, you said that inside there's a TV in there, and of course we wanted to know what the astronauts will be watching while on their ride to their pad, and we found out they'll be watching the Top Gun Maverick movie. I hear you laughing, Nicole, because that is very much the two of them in a way to get them both amped up. As we've mentioned before, both are experienced naval aviators, and we actually have some old school pictures we'd like to show you now. We have a picture of Sunny back in the day. And that particular movie has significance to her because she said when she first got into the Navy, she thought about being a diver, but then she watched the first Top Gun movie, and she decided to go to flight school. So she ended up being a helicopter pilot, right, Nicole?
That is awesome. That's a great picture. I have not seen that one before.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sunny was a helicopter pilot and a test pilot, and is still a wonderful pilot today. She actually flies a lot of general aviation as well.
Mm-hmm. And then we have a picture of Butch, of course. Fun fact, he was actually a real Top Gun pilot. And Dee, you mentioned Chris Ferguson, a retired NASA astronaut. He's on the far right. Talk to us again about him and the fact that he, too, was a Top Gun pilot.
That is correct. He
LC Slick on Channel 1.
Go ahead.
Crew transport convoy is en route to LC-41. Estimated arrival to the roadblock is about L minus, I would say, 3:05.
Roger. OSM, LC.
OSM.
Crew transport convoy is en route to pad. Permit entry into FHA.
Roger.
So as you hear there, obviously comm checks of the crew, letting teams know that the crew is on their way. And yes, Megan, as you mentioned, Chris Ferguson is a former Top Gun pilot. He is obviously a retired NASA astronaut, but he did work for Boeing. As we mentioned, he assisted us greatly with Starliner, helped design the NASA astronaut suits, and he shared many of his stories from his Top Gun days, if you will, and we enjoyed hearing them. So I love that they all have that to share.
And as we watch the convoy make their way across Kennedy Space Center here, let's check back in with NASA's Brandy Dean and Boeing's Jim May, who are monitoring things at Mission Control in Houston.
Thanks, Megan. It's great seeing Butch and Sunny on their way to the launch pad. We gave them a good send-off here when they left Houston on April 25th as well. The teams at Johnson Space Center lined the road to Ellington Airfield, holding up good luck signs and even tossing a little confetti as they drove in to board their T-38s for Florida. Things have been going smoothly for the flight control team in Mission Control Houston. The team here took control of Starliner a little less than an hour ago, and they've been working smoothly through a number of the steps in their pre-launch checklist. One of the first things they did after coming on console was a weather briefing with the crew in crew quarters still. That was a quick conversation, though, as the weather is looking very good for today's launch opportunity.
The team here in Houston is continuing to work through their pre-launch checklist, although right now they're working in more of a monitor mode, keeping the spacecraft stable while Butch and Sunny head to the pad. Then the teams at Kennedy Space Center prepared a Starliner for their arrival. So once the crew gets strapped into their seats and the hatches closed, things here will pick back up a little bit as we perform cabin leak checks, monitor Starliner's life support systems, hosting the crew for the first time to space.
Yeah, and then in the last 20 minutes before launch, there are a few important actions they'll work through, switching Starliner to internal power and working with the crew to activate the launch abort system.
This carefully choreographed pre-launch process has been practiced many times as a fully integrated team, and most recently just last week with all of us sitting here in the same seats as our final set of training to prepare for Butch and Sunny's mission today.
And of course, all of this is aiming to get the crewed Starliner to the International Space Station for its crewed flight test. So let's check in again with the destination, the International Space Station. Rob Navius is with the Space Station Flight Control Team, standing by to give us an update. Rob?
Thanks, Brandy. Well, Mission Control is buzzing tonight with the White Flight Control Room down the hall, poised to take over Starliner mission operations at liftoff of the Atlas V rocket. And in this room, the International Space Station Flight Control Room, we're ready to collaborate with our colleagues once Starliner moves into what are called integrated operations around 9:45 p.m. Central Time tomorrow night, about 3 hours prior to Starliner's scheduled docking. Once the new spacecraft is docked to the station's Harmony module, there'll be a period of about 2 hours to conduct leak checks on both sides of the Starliner Harmony docking interface before the hatches will swing open, allowing Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams to enter the station, which has been home for both of them on previous missions. Wilmore and Williams will configure Starliner systems for docked operations, then will join the 7 Expedition 71 crew members for a typical safety briefing. That will be conducted by Station Commander Ali Kononenko of Roscosmos. The Starliner crew will transfer equipment to the station from their spacecraft and begin to settle in for their visit. Countdown clocks are ticking backward as we close in on the launch of this test flight. We're ready here in Houston, so let's go back to the Cape and our continuing coverage.
Thank you, Rob. All right, we are now 3 hours, 10 minutes and counting from only the 6th time NASA astronauts will launch on a new spacecraft designed for crew. If you're curious about the first 5 crewed test flights, here they are. The first was Mercury Redstone 3, launched May 5th, 1961 with Alan Shepard.
The next one was Gemini 3, launched with Gus Grissom and John Young on March 23rd, 1965.
Apollo 7, Wally Schirra, Don Isley, Walt Cunningham, October 11th, 1968.
Then you have STS-1 with astronauts John Young and Robert Crippen, which launched on April 12th, 1981.
And then NASA's SpaceX Demo 2 mission, Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken, May 30th, 2020.
And of course, today you have NASA's Boeing crew flight test with Commander Butch Wilmore and pilot Sonny Williams. And as you pass by there, that's actually near C3PF, where we refurbish and assemble the Starliner.
And right next to that building, we have the historic vehicle assembly building here at Kennedy Space Center. And we should, of course, acknowledge that what will be the 7th time NASA will fly crew on a new spacecraft off our planet, and that will be the Artemis II mission next year. NASA astronauts Reed Weissman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen will orbit the moon, and their Space Launch System rocket and Orion spacecraft will be assembled in that vehicle assembly building. Let's check out what's already in work for NASA's return to the moon. Engineers inside the Neil A. Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building at Kennedy Space Center lowered the Orion spacecraft into a vacuum altitude chamber with the help of a 30-ton crane. The chamber simulates deep space to test for any electromagnetic energy that could damage Orion as it travels away from Earth. Meanwhile, the Artemis II crew completed an underway recovery test at sea. This exercise mimics Orion landing and recovery procedures when the crew splashes down in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of California. Navy divers and boats approached a mock-up Orion capsule and helped the astronauts into helicopters, which then flew them to a nearby naval ship, just like they'll do during the mission. Back at Kennedy and high above Launch Pad 39B, this 360-degree video takes you for a ride inside one of the Artemis emergency egress baskets. In the event of an emergency at the launch pad, astronauts and workers use this quick exit to get to safety. That's a look at your Artemis Moon Minute.
We're now 3 hours and 7 minutes away from launch. Let's check back in with Daryl Nail over at Hangar AE.
Well, thank you very much, Dee. And as we follow the convoy to the pad here, you can see the shadows on the vehicles are getting long. That's because sunset is just about 30 minutes away, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Sunset, and the conditions for weather are simply fantastic. It's 79 degrees outside, humidity about 70%. But we are very dry, very comfortable, and any storms that have been caused by sea breeze, convection over the center of the state are being kept away by some nice 12 to 14 knot winds, according to the launch weather officer, just keeping those storms at bay off in central Florida. So as the team goes out there, the crew's getting a beautiful sunset, a beautiful Florida sunset as they go out to their launch pad today. Also want to mention that the NASA operations manager has set the triage points based on the conditions that the weather has for today, specifically the winds, those 12 to 18 knot winds forecasted at T0. That dictates where they can put the triage should there be an emergency at the pad and they needed to get crews out of there. They want to make sure that both the emergency personnel and the astronauts are safe in case of any emergencies that happen. Now you saw the helicopter flying right by, and this is a shot as they continue to drive out towards Space Launch Complex 41 here. And with that, we're going to send it back to Megan.
All right, and as Butch and Sunny are almost at the launch pad, let's check back in with Lauren and Town.
Hey, Megan. As the crew has been making their way across Kennedy Space Center and over to the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station side, Space Force Station, I should say, the pad team's been inside working to prepare the inside of Starliner for the crew to arrive. We've been talking a little bit about the pad team. We've told you we also referred to them as the blue team. So if you hear us say blue team, that's who we're talking about. It's made up of 5 people from Boeing and 3 people from ULA. As the pad team is working up in the top of the crew access tower, one of the pad team members is also going to be making their way down to escort the crew up once they get there to the pad. You can see there on the left of your screen, that is what we call the white room. So we have 2 pad team members working away in the white room. And then on the back of that shot is, of course, the hatch that goes into Starliner. So that's where we will see Butch and Sunny making their way into here shortly. We're also about to see a pretty exciting moment. As soon as they arrive to the pad, they are going to be able to get a last second look at their rocket. They will first pull over to the side of the rocket and be able to look up at it and see it in all of its glory before they take off this evening. And they've done this 3 times before. This will be their 3rd time. They've, of course, gone to space in the shuttle and as well as the Soyuz. So they know how to go through these motions, but it's a little bit different and a little bit special each time. We have heard Sunny and Butch talk a lot about this spacecraft and how much they love it for its agility. Butch, if you've heard him in some of the recent press conferences, has even joked a little bit about how he feels so lucky to be in this spacecraft and how nimble it is, because he says he could really do barrel rolls around the ISS if he wanted to.
Go ahead.
Of course.
Yes, sir. Per step 150, 26 personnel, 26 entering FHA at this time.
Roger.
Of course, he would not be doing barrel rolls around the ISS, but he just likes to use that as an example of just how nimble this spacecraft is. Sunny also tells us that it is a test pilot's dream to be on this flight. She says she feels like she won the golden ticket. So it's pretty special for our teams to hear things like that. They have both been thoroughly involved with the development of Starliner, making changes along the way. They say that their fingerprints are really all over every procedure, every part of Starliner, even their spacesuits. They have been that involved in the makeup of everything. Of course, it is their goal to put Starliner through the ringer during this test flight and to prepare it for their friends who will take future rides on Starliner once we are certified and there are future missions on Starliner 1. So Dylan, the crews feel very confident with a ride to space on the Atlas, which has a 100% mission rate. They like to talk about that.
Well, Lauren, the Atlas V Starliner configuration was designed with a commitment to safety. One of the most reliable rockets in the world, Atlas V, is today carrying an extra layer of safety for its specialized duty of launching astronauts. We call that the Emergency Detection System, or EDS for short, and it was developed by ULA engineers to enhance the protection of astronauts riding atop Atlas V.
On Channel 1.
Go ahead.
Ready for pad support personnel to perform OSE radio comm checks and proceed to ground level.
Roger.
And Lauren, as I was saying, that EDS system autonomously monitors the health of all of the launch vehicle systems during flight. If the EDS system detects an impending anomaly, it can trigger an abort faster than any human could possibly do. But the astronauts also have the capability to trigger a manual abort from inside the capsule. Along with that EDS system, we also have a dedicated ascent flight control team on console at our headquarters in Denver. During this,
this is Slick. They're exiting the white room to grab the radio now.
Okay, Roger, copy that.
Yeah, during any human spaceflight mission, this team is monitoring the health and performance of the rocket during ascent to space. The engineers will provide a real-time status and collaborate directly with NASA's flight director and mission control in Houston. When you hear the call sign Atlas, that's our ascent lead, and he'll be providing real-time telemetry data from the rocket and provide continued situational awareness. So for now, the rocket remains ready. We're just waiting on the opening of today's launch window and our astronauts. All the activity out at the pad is actually up on that crew access tower right now. As you mentioned, there are 3 ULA team members on the blue team, and they're there to manage all aspects of the crew access tower systems. They performed the initial safety checks of the tower and the white room prior to the Boeing team's arrival at the pad. Once the crew is loaded,
and convoy has arrived at the pad gate.
Roger.
LCO, Sim.
Go ahead.
Crew transport vehicle has entered the pad.
Roger. Crew is clear to proceed to level 12.
Roger.
Okay, we're hearing now that the crew has pulled into the pad fence line, as you can see, and they've been given clearance to go all the way up to level 12 on the CAT.
All right, as Butch and Sunny make their way up to the rocket, and we are going to see a very historic moment here, we're going to pitch it back over to Megan and Dee and Nicole. Ladies.
Thank you, Lauren and Dylan. Yeah, we just saw the Astrovan get onto the pad there. The rest of the security escort stayed behind, right, Nicole?
Yes, they stay behind, and it's just the Astrovan that goes up there to the launch pad.
L-3 hours.
Time markers again, L-3 hours to launch. As we see Butch and Sunny and NASA astronaut Mike Fink get out of the Astrovan.
You can see Mike taking some photos there already, which is, he's always great at commemorating the moment.
Yeah, I'm sure that he's very excited again to see his friends.
And this is a special moment right here when they get a chance to look at the rocket.
So Butch and Sunny walking ahead there. They're going to take a look at the rocket, which you see on the upper right-hand part of your screen, kind of behind the building that's there. You see the A, that is the structure there that's holding the rocket up. Again, a really wonderful moment for the two of them to take this all in.
You know, and it's amazing. You do it, it feels like 100 times in training, and maybe there's a rocket there, maybe it's not. But the day you look up and you see your spacecraft on top of that rocket and you know you're about to climb on board, it feels very different.
And this shot, it shows how massive this rocket is. It really shows the scale of just what they're about to do.
How did you feel, Nicole, when you took a look at your rocket before getting on it?
I was amazed. As you know, as Dee mentions, amazed just how massive it is. And it's just incredible to think that we as humans can come together and build something so incredible, launch humans into space, and to do it safely.
And again, this must be emotional for Mike Fink as well, because right after this flight, and once Starliner is certified for those continued flights to the International Space Station, it'll be his turn.
Yeah, he and Scott Tingle will be headed up on Starliner 1, hopefully not too soon.
And so the three of them now back in the Astrovan driving around to the elevator that will take them up the crew access tower, specifically to level 12, and that is where they will get into the Starliner spacecraft.
And this is where Mike will leave them, as we talked about. He's doing kind of all the last checks to support them. He'll hand them their helmet bags, which contain everything that they need to take into the spacecraft that they're not currently wearing.
The vehicle has arrived at the base of the CAD.
Roger.
So they'll have their checklist, their ascent entry checklist, their chippas, of course, which are their headsets, their gloves, and then maybe a Sharpie or a pen. The crew kind of can decide what particular things that they want to have with them in their helmet bag.
And so probably that handoff is happening off camera now. Again, Fink handing off helmet bags.
LC Locks 2.
Go ahead.
For your awareness, we've just had a quick instance of some topping oscillations, and I've manned my system into a stop flow.
Roger. And so you're going to pause here for 5 minutes?
That's affirmative.
Roger. Advise when you reinitiate.
We'll go.
And you can see it looked like the blue team was actually carrying their helmet bags, and
The flight crew has entered the CAT elevator.
Roger.
they're escorting their Butch and Sunny onto the elevator.
All right. And as they close the elevator door, we will see them reappear on level 12.
Go ahead, Blue Team Lead.
In conjunction with the topping oscillations that were reported, we're getting a unusual audible associated with that.
Roger. Locks 2, LC.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Roger. Is there any expected venting up in that area?
Roger, LC, we're starting to see the oscillations at the top of the OLED space dampen out little by little. We're going to observe it for a little bit longer here, but at this time we don't see any issues with the tank health this time.
Roger. Suspecting maybe just a different sound coming out of the Centaur vent valve.
And you can hear that communication there from
affirmative, LC.
Roger.
United Launch Alliance. They're, of course, monitoring all the instrumentation.
Blue Team Lead, LC.
Go ahead, sir.
Roger. Appreciate the comment. Just advised if anything significant changes.
Yes, sir.
They're monitoring the instrumentation very closely, and then we'll talk about...
The flight crew have arrived on CAT level 12.
Roger.
anything they see that is, potentially off nominal, and they will investigate, and you could hear them reporting to the rest of the control teams. They will continue to monitor, and of course, if there are any issues, they will let us know. But at this point, it sounds like they're just looking at some instrumentation.
Yeah, I believe they said something about a stop flow for maybe 5 minutes, and they'll monitor that and hopefully be resuming after those 5 minutes. And what we're seeing now is, again, pilot Sunny Williams now on level 12. So what's happening now is Butch is going to the bathroom. Very important. It's his final opportunity to go to the bathroom before launch, right, Nicole?
Yeah, and believe it or not, that is at a very important moment. You want to take that time there. And it also gives, your other crew member a chance there, like Sunny is, to look out the top of the launch tower, which is just an incredible view. You can see the wind is really ripping, as you can see Sunny's hair getting blown around, but it's a great view looking down. I'm sure that sunset over the Cape is pretty special at this point.
Yeah, it's wonderful that this isn't a night launch, because obviously at night this place is pitch dark. So it's nice to have a view from up there for them.
And you can see off to the left there, that is the crew access arm that's headed out to the White Room. So once they're complete with their restroom breaks, then they will head down the crew access arm.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Crew transport vehicle is clearing the pad.
Roger.
And here they go. Butch and Sunny walking across the crew access arm to Starliner, their ride to space. So
and
now,
OSM, proceed to south fallback.
Roger.
So now they're in the White Room being greeted by some of the pad team members. That's going to help them ingress into the Starliner capsule. But before they do that, you can see Butch has a Sharpie in his hand, and he is actually signing a mission patch that they have put in the White Room.
It may seem like we do a lot of signing and a lot of patches, but it's important, the traditions, and not only, but for all the team that supports. So you can see all the Boeing folks there in the White Room, and Sunny and Butch have worked with these folks for many, many years, and they are going to do all the final checks and get them in the spacecraft. Really, Sunny and Butch put their lives and making sure that they're ready to go in their hands. So you can see them gathering there for some words prior to getting in the spacecraft.
I love seeing this moment. Again, another opportunity for them to get together, possibly a prayer. We know that Butch is a man of faith.
Discussed in the room here, we're almost at the end of our 5-minute timer for restarting flow with the oscillations. Recommendation from IFS is to resume flow and then immediately initiate a rechill process once we have regained our topic state.
Roger. I concur. Proceed.
You can see it looks like the Butch there is taking the patches from the crew that are helping them get suited up there in the White Room, and he'll fly those patches to space and then return them to the crew members when he returns safely.
And simultaneously also happening, you'll see the pad team members with different bags, and that's basically them making sure that Butch and Sunny have everything they need before they get into the Starliner spacecraft.
Yes, you can't check too much, so you will double and triple check, and you'll have your buddy check you out as well. You want to make sure that you have everything situated just perfectly. You can see Butch there, he's hooking up the comm cord from his Chippa to his spacesuit.
And what we'll see is Butch going through the ingress process first, and then Sunny will observe from the outside here, and then it'll be her turn to go inside.
Yes, and there's a lot. You can see that the Boeing folks have suits on, have hairnets on, have gloves on, have masks on. The White Room is a clean room. It's environmentally controlled. We want to make sure that the environment inside the spacecraft has the proper humidity, that there's no contamination, and it's very important that there's no dust, hairs, rocks, anything, any type of FOD that could get into the spacecraft or into the hatch. So it's important that we keep this room clean and pristine.
Right, so after they help him get his gear situated here, as you said, some FOD checks, foreign object debris, things that shouldn't be on them, go into space with them. So make sure they take them off. So you see that white pad on the floor there, Nicole? That's like a tacky mat is what they call it.
Yeah, the little sticky mat. And so if there's any debris on your shoes or your boots as you go in, that will get removed and stay on the sticky mat. You can see that they're helping Butch put on his wrist. He's got a wrist mirror as well as a wrist light that they helped put on. He also has a watch, and he has a cover that's on his watch. You can see that wrist mirror there on his right forearm.
And what do they need a light and a mirror on their forehead? Why do they need those things?
Well, really, that mirror. Remember, we saw how during that leak check how Butch lowered his helmet and then zipped his helmet all the way around. So you can't by yourself see where. Confirm that helmet is fully zipped unless you have a mirror or your buddy can look at it and see it for you. So it's really for safety of flight. And if you needed to, of course, when you're strapped in, you may have limited visibility. Of course, if you're pressurized or something, that's even exacerbated. So that mirror allows you to gain more views of the spacecraft and to check that your helmet is properly zipped prior to pressurizing.
And now we are inside the Starliner spacecraft. And as Butch gets settled into his seat, let's toss it over to Lauren and Dylan inside with the launch team to walk us through what else will happen before Sunny gets in.
Two.
Go ahead.
This time, flow has been reinitiated and a rechill has been issued.
Roger.
Megan, thank you. We are taking a new view now. This
And
is
Blue
from
Team Lead, LC.
This is from one of the 4 different views we have inside Starliner from our Mustang camera system. And this shot here, of course, is up close on our commander, Butch Wilmore, as he gets settled into the seat here. This is the commander's seat, so he, you saw him there sort of crawl across some of the other seats to slide all the way over. Part of the reason why he goes in first is because he is the farthest to crawl across there. So 2 different pad team members helping to get him settled in. He will sort of do a little bit of a shimmy to get perfectly into the seat and comfortable as they start to strap him up. And you can see them working across his belt there, as well as some of the straps on his legs. We're also seeing Sunny walk down back toward the white room now.
LCOSM.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. First step 160.24. Personnel have exited FHA roadblock.
Roger.
All right, and back inside Starliner. Again, we have these 2 pad team members who are helping Butch get settled in here. They won't start with Sunny until Butch gets completely in. These seats that they're in, actually, Butch and Sunny made some recommendations when they started the process of getting fitted into them. They wanted to add a little bit of extra padding to their backs. So that's just one of the ways that they've been involved in making changes along the way. And they say that, every little change that they make, they want their friends, the other astronauts who will fly Starliner in the future, to look back and thank them for making, this the most comfortable and pleasant ride to space for them. Now, right in front of Butch there is the Starliner console. It is a display with a mix of screens and switches and knobs. It also has 2 hand controllers, so he'll have one down to his right as well as a one on his left. And that console has really been simplified from
Blue Team Lead, LC on 1.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Roger. Just for your essay, we are executing another Centaur Locks rechill.
Yes, sir. We did notice that. I apologize for being off net briefly. I had to do a crew assist. The audible that I had reported earlier concerning the chattering sound is greatly diminished, but it is still present.
Roger.
As I was saying, the console there has really been simplified for maximum efficiency from some of the previous spacecraft that they've both been on. The shuttle had thousands of switches and indicators, but Starliner has about 85. And Butch and Sunny have told us that they really like to be able to get their hands on those switches and the hand controllers. Of course, they're both test pilots at heart, and aviation is in their blood, and so they like to be able to get their hands on it. They will be doing some manual flying about 1 hour after they are in a safe orbit, so about an hour and a half after launch. Not too far from now, they will be grabbing those hand controllers and flying Starliner. Of course, it was built to be completely autonomous, and future missions we don't expect them to ever need to take their hands onto the console, but this is a test flight, and so we are going to test out all of the capabilities of Starliner. The other seats that are in Starliner today, the third and fourth seat, are filled with cargo. The fifth seat has a flat plate on it. So Sunny will sit right next to Butch, and we saw them give us a little demonstration in a press conference recently. They sat down next to each other to kind of show us how they sit in this spacecraft, and they said it was quite roomy. They had elbow room and they could move around. They gave us another example of what they've been like in previous flights where they've been a little bit tighter, so they were happy to have the extra space here. This process takes about 15 to 20 minutes to get Butch completely ingressed. But Dylan, our teams have really been working for the last few days leading up to this launch. It didn't just start in the last few hours, right?
Yeah, that's right, Lauren. So we actually rolled the rocket out to the launch pad on Saturday. And once the rocket was rolled out, we made those connections, like I said before, to all the pad utilities. So the propellant storage farms, pad power systems, the environmental control systems. And once all that was done, then we loaded the RP-1 rocket fuel onto the Atlas first stage. RP-1 is not cryogenic on Atlas V, so we were able to load that early prior to launch day. So we did that on Saturday afternoon. And with all that work complete, we wrapped up our activities on Saturday in preparation for our launch opportunity today. So this morning we came in at 11:15, powered up the launch vehicle, started doing all of our avionics checks and all those final configurations and double checking the configuration of the pad. With all that complete, we went ahead and loaded all the cryogenic propellants on board Atlas and Centaur.
And we are seeing Sunny make a phone call right now. I think we might be able to actually see who's on the other end of that call.
LCSYS on one.
Go ahead, SYS.
Step 170, L1 balloon cycle task is complete.
Roger.
So there on the left side of the screen, we are taking a look into the BMCC. And there's a bit of a surprise happening right now. Sunny is making her phone call to a man named Bill Barr. He is a Boeing employee working there in the Boeing Mission Control Center, and he is the responsible engineer for the Ingress system, which stands for Environmental Control and Life Support System. Now, obviously, that's a very important system for flights with human on board. Just trying to see if we could see any of the reaction in the room, but I'm sure this is quite the honor and surprise for Bill. Bill is a lifetime career Boeing employee. He started with one of Boeing's heritage companies, McDonnell Douglas, in the Skylab program. His teammates told us he is one of the greatest mentors anyone could ask for. Just a great teacher, knowledgeable, kind, and incredibly patient. Couldn't hear anything better from your teammates.
Editor 1 is on listen to.
And we're going to start hearing some comm checks here as Butch gets connected.
And LOX 2, LC.
Go ahead, LC.
Roger, do you have a status update?
At this point, we're back into stable topping replenish. Still monitoring our delta P measurements in the tank, but things are looking more favorable. We'll inform you if we start seeing oscillations again.
Roger.
Houston, CDR Starliner, from Starliner, cop check on Underground 1.
Starliner at Houston, loud and clear, Underground 1 for the CDR.
All right, good comms check there. Those comms are connected through the umbilical on his torso.
And
We
Houston,
mentioned that when
Starliner,
they
we're
were
ready
in the
to
suit up.
power suit 10 Bravo.
Starliner, Houston, Air Ground 1, we copy, ready for Bravo on the Eclipse control tower panel. You can take suit fan Bravo to ON.
Suit fan Bravo's coming on.
All right, so you just heard that call there. They are turning the suit fan on. And it looks like they're actually a little bit ahead of schedule here. This is something we were expecting to happen in about 7 minutes. So running pretty efficient today, and they will be, doing their best to see how quickly they can get this done, because of course we'll have 4 or more astronauts on future missions. When they have the suit fan on, that system routes air from the cabin back into the suit. So that's what they're testing out right now. You can see Butch has some paper procedures in his lap. He will use paper procedures until they get up into orbit. And then once they get up there, they will have tablets they pull out with the rest of their procedures. They also have procedures strategically placed in a few other positions. They have a knee board with procedures, as well as they have a pretty cool arm strap that sort of looks like what a quarterback for a pro football team would wear. If you've ever seen that, it has a laminated flap on it, and they can put procedures in there so they can just look down at their arm.
So, Lauren, I believe Butch did play football, right?
He did. Yeah, college football player. So he may be used to seeing those.
Yeah.
There's not much Butch can't do. I'll tell you that. The spacecraft is about 15 feet across inside, so quite spacious. They like to compare it to about a mid-size SUV. One of the tests that will be happening once they get up to the space station is called the Safe Haven test, and it's one of our flight test objectives. And they will actually pull in a couple of the astronauts who are already on the space station into Starliner with them, and go through some procedures to be able to prove that Starliner could actually provide them sort of a lifeboat if they ever needed it, if there was a problem on the ISS. So we'll get a chance to see probably about 4 astronauts in there during that time. These seats that they're in are built to accommodate a range of heights as small as 4'11" all the way up to 6'4". So if you had any preconceived notions about what size you have to be an astronaut, not in this case. We will be able to fit all sizes. Sunny talks a lot about that too in the suit fits that they've done, that they've been able to, the suit checks that they've done, they've been able to make sure that they can accommodate all sizes.
Houston Starliner, we are ready to perform suit first sleep check.
Starliner, Houston, we copy, ready for suit cross leak check. CDR, we're ready.
All right, so that call there for the suit gross leak check, that is to check for any leaks in Butch's spacesuit. Now, the word gross is used in this situation to mean any significant or easily detectable leak that could compromise the integrity of the suit. It sounds a little funny, but it is a word that we're very used to in spaceflight. They'll be able to tell pretty quickly if there was a leak in the spacesuit. Once they inflate it, those pad team members will push on their arms and make sure that there's no air coming out. These suits are about 40% lighter than suits they've worn in the past. And Dylan, I've even tried on their gloves, and you would be amazed at how much you can move around in them, what all you can do in them. Of course, the fingertips you can use the tablets with, but I was really surprised at just how flexible they were. It's starting to get darker over Space Launch
Successful
Complex
sequence
41.
leak check on CDR.
Houston copies a good gross suit leak check on the CDR. Thanks.
Good gross leak check. Good news there. You know, Butch is a former flight test instructor at Edwards Air Force Base. He has a Master of Science in Aviation Systems. So let's listen to a little bit more on this retired U.S. Navy captain and CFT commander, Butch Wilmore.
A large part of the desire within us is to do things that are of benefit to others. In this job, we get to do things that are of benefit truly for all mankind as we explore the heavens that not many people get to experience, true, but we don't go just to get the experience. It's about the team and it's about the benefit that it brings. My name is Butch Wilmore, and I am the commander for NASA's Boeing Crew Flight Test Mission to the International Space Station. Life in Tennessee, God's country, that's where I grew up. Very fortunate, had loving parents, took us to church. When I was young, 7 years old, I believe, they bought a little land out in the country, 6 acres or so. We had horses and cows, and I raised chickens and ducks, and just enjoyed life in the country. I went to Tennessee Tech, started working on an electrical engineering degree, and played football, which was a very difficult combination, I learned, because they're both full-time jobs. So it was a lot of effort over those years, but it molded me and it helped instill the work ethic my parents had instilled in me when I was younger. I entered the Navy and was fortunate to fly the A-7E. It was a single-seat attack aircraft, and I flew that for a couple of deployments. And then I transitioned to the F-18 Hornet, and through that process was selected in the test pilot program. You learn a lot about yourself as you go through test pilot school, where you're lacking in certain capabilities that are necessary to do a test pilot type of job. When it comes to flight test, the minute details matter. When we're doing our runs, hey, well, let's run it this way. Let's do it that way. Let's add this in. Let's take that out. And let's look at it in that regime so we can see how the spacecraft responds. And that's what you do with aircraft, that's what you do with spacecraft, and that's what this test is all about. This crew flight test is a series of these various tests to ensure that the operational requirements and the design meets those requirements. And I think everybody that does flight tests would agree. Focus, understanding, and also the team coming together to give you the overall understanding of the test and the capabilities of the spacecraft or aircraft that you're testing is vital. Sitting in this seat over here in the Starliner sim and doing the things we've done and learning about the spacecraft, developing a lot of the capabilities of the spacecraft, it's very humbling when you see and you interact with some of these professionals, and our human spaceflight and our nation has a debt of gratitude to them. Every single training evolution we have is brand new. We're the first to do it. Whether it is checking the survival equipment in the pool with a mock-up of the spacecraft and how you egress, get out of the spacecraft, whether it's the side hatch or the upper hatch, while the seas are rough and all those type of things. There's a thought of how things should be, but then there's the reality of how things need to be. And that's what this test is all, everything we do is test. It's been a process over years that is such a benefit in all aspects of the capabilities of this spacecraft. And we're excited to be a part of it.
We are excited to be a part of it as well. As they are starting to finish up with Butch, one of the things that was really important to him was to take the name tags of every single one of the pad team members up to space with them. Now, this is a tradition that dates back to shuttle, but typically they would take just 2 name tags, the 2 folks that are working with them there in the spacecraft, but something he really wanted to do was take the name tags of all of them. So pretty special honor for those folks in the pad team. Now, Dylan, what's been going on with ULA as we've been focused here on the crew? There's a lot going on in the background.
Well, Lauren, that's right. So there's a couple of things going on down in the control room. As there has been some conversation on the net that folks would have heard, the propulsion team is actually active, kind of maintaining the propellant levels in the cryogenic propellant tanks, and that'll continue right up until we enter the terminal count. Our avionics testing is all complete for the day, so it's relatively quiet on avionics row at the moment. The launch conductor and his team are going to be listening very closely to all the activities on the pad, and we've heard some of that communication between LC and the Blue Team lead as they report back and forth on the activities that are up on the crew access tower right now. And as part of that, the ULA and the range safety team are also monitoring all of the activities as well with a keen eye on safety. So the team is staying busy downstairs, and but for the most part, from a rocket processing perspective, the rocket's fully fueled and ready to go. So we'll just be waiting on loading our crew today, and then once the Starliner is all closed out, then our team will pick back up with those final preparations for launch. But for now, for the most part, the ULA team is kind of just in a monitor mode, just maintaining readiness for our instantaneous window today.
And for anyone who may be just joining us, I just wanted to let you all know at home, we are wearing headsets and listening to a lot of the chatter that's going on in the background. So you are hearing some of the public communications that are going across the loops, but we're also hearing some other things through our headsets. So it's our job to listen to those things and be able to translate them to you as they happen. So again, we are watching Commander Butch Wilmore get ingressed or entered into Starliner, and we are watching the pad team go through some of those procedures. One of the things I really wanted to mention about the seats is, some people might not realize that they're actually sort of laying on their back in this position, and Sunny tells a story about it, that, they were both on shuttle, and shuttle landed with them sitting in sort of like a chair, like you would sit in a chair, and that, they studied the impacts over the years, and that it actually is safer and more comfortable to land on your back. So that's why they're in this position. Of course, once they get up into space, it won't make a difference, of course, but they are on their backs right now. So it looks like we are starting to see Sunny make her way into Starliner. So to walk you through her procedures, we will send it back to Megan, Dee, and Nicole.
Thank you so much, Lauren and Dylan. So as she said, we now see Sunny inside Starliner. She is to Butch's right. So Butch is closest to us on screen here, and then to his right is Sunny getting into the pilot seat. And Nicole, she's actually getting in a lot earlier than we were expecting. The pad team has until an hour and 55 minutes before launch to finish ingressing both crew members. And look where we are. Sunny getting into her seat 2 hours 27 minutes before launch, and crew ingress usually for each person takes 15 to 20 minutes. So really, all the math that I just said means they're ahead.
Yes, and that is all goodness. As I mentioned in the suit room, we do have some pad to the numbers just in case you need to troubleshoot something. So say, for example, as Sunny's going to get strapped into the spacecraft, if one of the buckles breaks or if something is twisted and we need some extra time, since it's an instantaneous launch window, the last thing you want is something silly like that, something that we can fix, have the launch be scrubbed. And so we do have this time built in for troubleshooting, and if everything goes smoothly like it is so far, then you'll see the crew ahead of schedule. This is also a great point to this being a first developmental test flight. This is the first time we're running through these procedures in a real spacecraft on a real launch day. So we'll learn a lot, and in the future, when there's more than 2 people on the spacecraft, we'll be able to recognize some of those efficiencies.
Yeah, and this is a great view, actually. So we have several views inside of Starliner. There's 4 camera views. There's someone in Houston who's monitoring, which camera view gives all of the teams monitoring this launch the best views. And this one is a really great view. We see 2 pad team members helping Sunny get in, helping with her 5-point harness, as well as getting her leg and knee restraints on. Right, Nicole?
Yes, you have your feet that are strapped in. You can see those white straps on the top of Sunny's feet. You're also going to have your knee board strapped in. You want to make sure that all of your comm is connected properly, and then they will do comm checks with each other as well. And you can see on Butch's left knee there, he has those paper checklists. Those are also tethered down. And so every, through many hours, hundreds of hours of simulation, you figure out what works for you, exactly where you want everything. And so it's important on day of launch that you have everything set up just as you have trained.
Again, the astronauts Sunny going through the same procedures that Butch just went through. Also something that we'll see them do are reach checks, right? Because we are buckling them down so that they're comfortable and safe, but we need to make sure that they can reach all of the things that they need to reach during their flight.
Absolutely, and of course they've done that in training and on mission dress rehearsal, but again, you want to double check. And day of launch, you want to make sure maybe if you have something snagged that's going to hinder your reach, that could affect the mission. So we go through all those final checks one more time before the launch countdown continues.
And coming up soon, so that we all know to look for it, we expect Sunny to reveal their zero gravity indicator. Usually it's a soft toy a crew picks to fly with them, and once that toy begins to float, it's a visual indicator, right, that they have reached the weightlessness of microgravity, because we just said they're buckled in, and really nothing else should be floating around except for that zero gravity indicator.
Yes, it's a great way to show that you've reached microgravity. Unfortunately, the camera views for Starliner when it's in free flight will not be transmitted back down to the ground real time. They'll be recorded, but not real time back down to the ground. So Sunny will introduce this here on Earth.
And what we're showing you now is a kind of toothed whale, and that's a male narwhal. A narwhal, as you can see there, we're showing you because that is the zero-G indicator that Sunny chose with the help of her niece and nephew. Sunny wanted to choose an indicator that raised awareness for how space and ocean research go together. Obviously, we've been talking about how Sunny's really passionate about the ocean. So, and again, after all, space and the ocean really do go together, because space gives us a very unique vantage point of our oceans. So this particular narwhal toy that you saw Sunny holding in that picture coincidentally was named Calypso, which happens to be the name of today's Starliner spacecraft, which Sunny named in 2019. And she named it Calypso to pay homage to the explorer Jacques Cousteau. He sailed his ship named Calypso all over the world to teach people about the ocean. You see Mr. Cousteau right there. Now, Sunny believes Starliner will do the same for space, again, teaching people about space. And remember, Sunny wasn't supposed to fly on the spacecraft. She was initially assigned as the commander of Starliner 1, the first post-certification mission, as we've been mentioning, but she was later reassigned to CFT and feels it's an honor to fly on the spacecraft she named. So really, the stars all aligned for her to be on this flight test today.
She did. I think that's very special. I remember we were there all for the OFT landing when Butch revealed, or when Sunny revealed the name Calypso.
Yep, back in 2019. So look out for that zero gravity indicator. She had it in one of the bags that they're putting onto her. And so at some point when she's settled into her seat there, she will take it out, and then one of the pad team members will tether that indicator somewhere to the spacecraft again, so we can see it free floating when they reach microgravity.
And they have quite a few bags and satchels that are on their legs. Their right thigh pocket is a blue pocket, and then there they'll have any type of anything they need to get to in flight. So any medication or maybe a tissue or pens and pencils. And then they have a gray bag that's on their right shin pocket that has their emergency equipment, some food, emergency water, a whistle, a signaling mirror. And then on their left shin pocket, they'll have some personal items and their glasses if they need them, as well as a dosimeter.
And I want to go back to something you mentioned. You were mentioning the camera views inside of Starliner. So yes, we do have several camera views inside Starliner, and we will have those views all the way until launch. So we will get to keep our eyes on the crew all the way down to T0. Now, I want to mention some of the pad team members that we have here.
TLC comm check.
Starliner Houston, we have you loud and clear, radar ground 1 for the PLT.
Got you loud and clear as well.
So comm checks again between Sunny and Houston. It's part of the ingressing process, right? They get into the Starliner spacecraft, they get buckled in, then they do these comm checks with Houston, they do comm checks with each other, and then they do suit leak checks, and then the pad team will make sure that everything that's not supposed to fly to space is out of Starliner before they close the hatch and get ready for liftoff.
Absolutely. They'll do one last check with the crew, and the crew is also, their displays are on, and so they're able to see the telemetry on the displays and check their systems, which I know, Butch was personally very excited about, and I agree with him. Seeing the actual data on the actual spacecraft is quite different than what you see in the simulator. Hopefully it matches very, very closely, and I'm sure that it does, but on a launch day, it's real data. And so it's always interesting, something you want to take the time to walk through all of your subsystems.
Yeah, the last time Sunny and Butch were in Starliner was a little over a week ago. They were doing another rehearsal for today. And when asked how it felt, Sunny said it felt like they're where they're meant to be. It felt like coming home. And Butch is the one who said he can't wait to get in there and see real data and telemetry. So I'm sure he's excited, but also focused.
Absolutely. I remember thinking at this moment when I launched it felt so much like a training evolution. And I think that's a testament to how well the teams do in preparing for launch. We run through and rehearse everything. And that's a very comforting feeling because you have a lot on your mind and you want everything to go smoothly.
Throughout the broadcast, we've been hearing about each of their backgrounds. Both are test pilots, and both have said that background in particular has really helped them with this mission. Butch said our backgrounds are why we're here. And again, Sunny giving a lot of credit to Butch, saying he's always asking why, and it's really been helpful, especially in a test flight.
Especially in a developmental test flight, there is so much to learn, and everybody is working together. But when you have that integrated spacecraft, how those systems come together, especially during an anomaly, is something that takes a lot of trial and learning as you go through that process. And so both of their backgrounds as test pilots have been absolutely instrumental in the development of Starliner.
So coming up next, the suit gross leak checks on Sunny. Nicole, we know that we might have some new viewers that might not have seen Butch's ingressing and his suit leak checks. So let's talk again about what that is and how that's accomplished. It's basically the same suit leak checks we saw, or essentially the same suit leak checks we saw in the suit up room, right?
Yes, it's the same, except for you're plugged into the actual spacecraft. Right. So you have the cabin fans providing that air, but you close your visor, zip the visor, and then increase the pressure of your suit. And we're really checking to make sure there's no leaks. So if you didn't get that zipper all the way zipped, or if there was, some hair caught in there or a tether caught, that would fail your leak check, or if you had another problem somewhere else in the suit. So that's our final check prior to the astronauts launching, that the suits are in good order. Again, the suits are there to protect them in the case of an anomaly. It will provide pressure and breathing air to keep the astronauts safe should there be a problem on board the spacecraft.
Look at that beautiful shot on the left side of your screen there of a Starliner atop.
TLC is ready to perform gross leak check.
Starliner atop the United Launch Alliance.
Starliner Houston, we copy, ready for the gross suit leak check. PLT, your go.
Okay, you can see Sunny, she's closing her visor there, and she'll zip it closed, and then she has a little knob to increase the pressure of her suit, just a few psi, and then she'll pause to wait and make sure that her suit maintains good pressure before unzipping her visor and proceeding with the ingress.
And this is the first time we're seeing these suits in action. So, Nicole, did you have any input in how, I know that Sunny and Butch, did you have any input in how these suits were designed?
Early on, we worked a lot with David Clark and the suits. The design was pretty much set, but there were some modifications as the suits were built. We need to make sure that they fit each of the crew members and in a pressurized environment. And so there were some adjustments that David Clark went back and made on the suits to make sure that we had still the ability to reach everything when the suit was pressurized, and also some work on the zipper. As you can see, the zipper is a critical component there at the helmet. You need to make sure that it's zipped, so we need to be able to visually confirm that it's zipped, be able to hold on to a tether that's on the zipper, and that the zipper is strong enough, and then we have a proper technique for zipping that helmet.
Yeah, I remember Sunny saying that one of the modifications was putting a T-bar onto the end of that zipper just so that they really had a good grip on it as they made sure that it was completely closed.
Absolutely. And even though you have pretty good dexterity in the gloves, it's still difficult to hold on to a little tether. So the T-bar helps quite a bit.
Sunny is, of course, a retired U.S. Navy captain and Boeing CFT pilot. Some people might not know this, but Sunny once lived underwater for 9 days while working within the robotics branch of the International Space Station. Did you know that, Nicole?
Yes, I think she was a part of the NEMO mission, which is a space analog. We have different types of missions, some underwater, some in caves, believe it or not, where we are working together with a small group, executing science in a mission, but at the same time we're working on those expeditionary skills, living and working together as a team, which are a really important aspect to human spaceflight.
Check of the clock, 2 hours, 13 minutes and counting until liftoff of NASA's Boeing crew flight test. Again, just want to spend another moment to call attention to the left side of the screen here and just that beautiful shot that we have of Starliner and Atlas V. Thank you for bringing it up full screen because it is really a great shot. Nicole just turned around. It's directly behind us here at the host desk. Just to take this moment in.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Sunset happening just about 20 minutes ago here on Florida's Space Coast. I mentioned this before, that things right now are looking good. The pad team had until 1 hour and 55 minutes to ingress the crew.
All right, there we go.
We just heard that comm communication from Sunny there.
Looks like she was maybe troubleshooting a little something there with her suit. And so, again, that's why we have some additional time built into the schedule so that any type of issue, we have time to work through that and we don't feel rushed really in the process. You know, you want to make sure you have everything right. Safety is at the forefront of everybody's mind.
Copy. Let me know when you're ready to do contact.
Tech 5, you are now on air to ground 1.
POT, Tech 5 on air to ground 1. How do you read me? Okay, I do not hear you. Do you hear me? Contact.
Air to ground 1, I got you loud and clear for PLT.
Copy, copy. I got you loud and clear on air to ground 1. Let's go air to ground 2 contact again. Tech 5.
Air to ground 1 is one channel, one way of communicating. Air to ground 2 is a secondary line as well. Again, you've heard our commentators mentioning that they're monitoring, listening to the launch teams who are working this mission. We have some loops up publicly for you guys to listen in and to track how the countdown is progressing. And then there are some other side channels that a lot of work is also done in the background as well.
PLT, first leak check is complete.
Starliner, it's Houston. We copy gross suit leak check complete on the PLT, and I have you loud and clear, Sunny, here on Air to Ground 1.
Okay, I got you loud and clear as well.
All right, 2 good call-outs there. Successful communication check with Houston between Sunny, as well as a good check of her suit, making sure that it holds pressure as expected.
L minus 2 hours, 10 minutes.
ECS, LC.
Tech 5, you're back on Air to Ground 1.
ECS?
All right,
That's
PLT. So we
rate to
confirmed they got good
170
airflow
pounds
with
per minute.
correct?
Roger.
PLT, you can open your visor now.
All right, with Sunny opening her visor after a successful...
PLT, perform comm check on ICOM with CDR.
That's a command to do a communication check between Sunny and Butch. And while they do that, why don't we hear more about Sunny's journey to this moment right now?
Exploration is curiosity. It's asking the question why. It's taking that next step. Every time we do something for the first time, we're expanding our knowledge. My name is Sunny Williams, and I'm the pilot for NASA's Boeing Crew Flight Test Mission to the International Space Station. I feel really lucky to have grown up in a small town outside of Boston, Needham, Massachusetts. It was a great town because we were able to ride our bikes everywhere we went. My brother, sister, and I, we were all swimmers, and it was just a great childhood. My dad was a doctor and also did neuroscience research. We were the strange family who had pictures and diagrams of brains on our dining room table. My older brother went to the Naval Academy. I started researching a little bit, and I thought, well, what the heck, I'll try this out. And when I went, I found that I really loved it. Teamwork, followership, leadership, those opportunities that we had right from the very beginning, and to accomplish something a little bit bigger than yourself. And I think that paved the way for the rest of my career. Got a basic engineering degree from the Naval Academy. I really didn't know what it was all about when I went through that course curriculum, but when I went to test pilot school, all of that stuff sort of gelled together. I was like, oh wow, this is why we do math modeling. This is how we try to predict how change in an engine is going to affect the way the helicopter flies. Time on the International Space Station is priceless. People always ask, do you get bored, or, is it terrible being up there for a long period of time? And for me, I loved every minute. There was always something to do. You wake up, you look at your timeline like, wow, I got to do this experiment today. I got to get ready for a spacewalk. Every day was different. And just life on the space station becomes routine, which is sort of crazy to think about it. At one point in time on my first mission, I was like, I don't even remember really what it's like to walk. I've been flying around for so long. I don't even know what it's like to sit down. I got assigned to the commercial crew cadre in 2015. We went to the companies, found out the shell of their programs, and then actually started working with them to make them what they are today to accommodate astronauts. For Starliner, we've been heavily involved in the last couple of years in the software with the folks doing the development to make sure its capability will allow us to come home. And we've been involved with all the suit development, making sure every different size of person could fit in all these suits and they could operate the spacecraft adequately. We've had our fingers on every single procedure that we work inside the cockpit, as well as operated it with our mission control team to make sure that everything that future crews will do will be right. We haven't had the classic training as we had for Shuttle and Soyuz. We've sort of helped develop the training as well as the hardware. And this is sort of the shape of things to come as we get ready to go back to the moon. All of that is going to be developmental, and we're going to have the same mindset. It's not already established. We all have to be part of this big team to help develop it and make sure that integration, as the astronauts use all this equipment, is going to be top-notch and ready to take us even further.
2 hours, 6 minutes and counting until liftoff of CFT. Both Butch and Sunny inside Starliner, which is sitting on top. of a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station's Launch Pad 41. As you can see, we still have a pad team member in there. Looks like they're still helping either Sunny with something or, again, just readying the spacecraft for launch.
You know, it's interesting because the spacecraft is made for microgravity, and so actually you can't stand on the floor of the spacecraft, and so there's some special flooring pieces that are installed so that the pad team can walk around without damaging any of the components of the spacecraft and help get the astronauts strapped in. So I know as one of their final checks, they'll remove that specialized flooring and check the configuration inside of the spacecraft. As you mentioned, to get everything out that doesn't need to go to space.
Oh, there it is. It looks like they have taken the narwhal out and they are finding a place to tether it. Maybe I'm just imagining it because I can't really see Sunny's face, but she looks happy to see the narwhal out. Again, a special zero gravity indicator that she picked with her niece and nephew.
Pad, you are now on air to ground 1.
Copy. Starliner crew, is there anything else you need help with before we leave and close the hatch?
Waiting to hear if Butch and Sunny say anything over the loops.
All right, Starliner crew, it's been an honor to strap in, not my crew, but my friends. Have a safe flight. See you up there.
I love that.
Sounds like strap-in, everything went well. And you weren't imagining, I did see a smile on Sunny's face, and I could see Norval tethered there in the middle.
And again, I love that comm check again to say they're friends. Dee, you've been saying this throughout the broadcast, really, but Butch and Sunny have been working so closely with everyone who is needed to make this mission possible that they kind of all just feel like family.
Absolutely. You know, we've been working with them for years. They've been a part of, just as Nicole mentioned, all of the processes, all of the training, making sure that the spacecraft works as it is supposed to. And of course, now they're both on this flight test where they're going to do this mission and confirm that. So, you know, we have gotten very, very close with them. And this is an exciting moment for us to see this. And looking forward to seeing them lift off and begin this mission.
You know, it's interesting because you think of, you know, Butch and Sunny, of course, are the astronauts on top of the rocket right now and the ones going to space, but they really do represent, you know, that huge family of NASA and Boeing and everybody that's worked so hard to get to this point.
Go ahead, AC.
Okay, evaluating the SRV, we're most likely getting above the call cycles of this valve. We still have 2+ hours to go, so most likely exceeding the fall value. We do not have a path to proceed further at this point.
Roger. So at this point, your recommendation is to secure operations for today?
That is correct.
Roger. LD, LC on channel 1.
Yes, sir. LD concurs with that.
Roger. Flight and Slick, channel 1.
Flight here. Slick's on channel 1.
Yeah, Roger. So the engineering team has evaluated the vehicle is not in a configuration where we can proceed with flight today. So we're going to initiate our scrub and recycle operation.
Roger. Flight copy.
Roger.
And if you're just joining us, I'll look at the clock
Well,
here.
personnel, this is LC on channel 1. Let's turn to page 187, scrub crew egress operations.
Again, the clock 2 hours ahead of what we were targeting, a 10:34 and 14-second p.m. Eastern Time liftoff. But you just heard from the launch team that we are scrubbing for
OSM
today.
LC.
OSM, go ahead, sir.
Establish the BDA roadblocks and open the flight hazard area.
Roger.
All personnel on Channel 1 will be starting an estimated 65-minute hold at this time for flight crew egress. All systems maintain T-4 configuration.
As we hear some communication between team members, let's get it over to ULA's Dylan Rice to walk us through what we know so far and what we can expect moving forward today.
Thanks, Megan. So the team has had some observations on an oxygen relief valve on our Centaur second stage, and the team is just not comfortable with the signatures that they're seeing, the response out of that valve. And so, out of an abundance of caution, we are not going to continue with our launch operations today. And as you heard, the Chief Launch Conductor Doug Lebo call the team there and have the team prepare for scrub
Starliner,
operations and to prep for removal of the crew from Starliner.
Valve problem, more to follow.
So next steps, the team is going to be maintaining the configuration of the rocket, and we'll begin the process of egressing the crew. And once the crew is egressed and the blue team is safely left the pad, at that point we'll begin detanking the rocket and securing for the evening so that teams can continue to review data and troubleshoot the signature noted with the valve on board Centaur.
Of
Channel
course,
1.
disappointing.
Go ahead,
but
sir.
Sunny,
Yes, sir.
said
So
nothing
you
special
may have
about-
heard on Channel 1 we're standing down for today. So start and initiate getting the vehicle in configuration to egress the crew.
Roger, Wilco.
So I was saying, Sunny even said, nothing special about this date on the calendar. We will go when we're ready. Not today, but we'll try this again. So a lot of what's going to be happening now is sort of what we've seen happen up to this point, just in reverse.
Right, and again, this decision was not made lightly, but really out of an abundance of caution. We say that the rocket business is a business of 10 million details, and only when all 10 million details are correct and where you want them to be do you let your rocket fly. So for today, we're going to go back and
Slick LC Channel 1.
LC, you have Slick.
Yeah, Roger. So I'll rely on you timing-wise to let me know when you're ready for the CTV convoy to return to pad.
Yep, I was working that right now.
Roger.
So again, for now, we'll be maintaining the configuration of the launch vehicle until the crew and the blue team have exited the area, and at that point, we'll begin detanking and securing the launch vehicle for the evening. So for now, I think we'll turn it back over to Megan at the host desk.
Thank you, Dylan. Again, just a recap for folks, about 4 minutes ago, the launch team decided to stand down from the launch attempt today. Dylan noting for us that the ULA folks and the launch team, they decided to, out of an abundance of caution, to stand down because they saw something off nominal with an oxygen relief valve on Centaur. So right now we are looking live inside the White Room, where the pad team will begin procedures to help the crew out of Starliner, out and down the crew access tower. And then we also heard that plans are in place to return the Astrovan to the pad to pick up the team and return them to astronaut crew quarters. Now, Nicole, walk us through what we expect to see. There are obviously procedures in place for this exact thing, if needed.
Absolutely, and this is trained and rehearsed multiple times as well, and so ULA will make sure the rocket is in a good state, and they will follow their procedures. As far as the crew specifically, since the hatch wasn't closed and ordnance wasn't armed, it's quite simple for the crew. They'll wait for some callouts to make sure that the spacecraft's in a good config. That will be putting the comm, demerging the comm channels, transitioning back to ground power, and making sure that the prop system is all secured. And then the crew will egress. They'll pretty much do exactly what they did to get in, but an opposite with help of the pad team.
Okay. Do you know how long we expect that to happen? Is this a long process, or for the most part, this is pretty easy once we know it is safe for them to start getting out?
Once the rocket, we know the rocket's in a good config and they give the go, it's relatively quick to make sure that...
RLM-11.
Go ahead.
RLM line items disabled for red line report.
Roger. P&E2, LC.
Go ahead.
Secure CEC and activate safing purge.
Roger.
And you hear the
FTS, LC.
FTS.
Secure RF FTS and GPS metric tracking.
Roger.
That's the comm there from ULA. They are following their specific, procedure, and it's really just true professionals executing the scrub on the ULA side, as well as Boeing.
CEC secured and saving purge active.
Roger.
Another look inside Starliner. Butch and Sunny there. Butch closest to us, Sunny to his right, and a pad team member in there who will soon help them get out of Starliner. Nicole, you were saying, you must know how they might be feeling right now. You're close with them as friends and also as a fellow astronaut.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, of course, a natural human reaction is a little bit of disappointment. It's a very exciting time, and we all want to see, this spacecraft launch. But at the same time, it's a deep sense of appreciation that the team is doing the right thing, that they are checking all of the instrumentation, that they are able to identify something that's off nominal, because the last thing you want to do is deal with something like that in space. And so when we identify something like this on the ground, we see that as a big win. We avoided a potential problem by identifying it early, and yep, the will scrub. This is something I think as an astronaut you'd train to multiple times, and you're prepared for that as well. It's important that you keep your head in the game though, because potentially they could launch tomorrow, depending on the findings of this investigation. And so you maintain your focus. You are still sitting on with prop, and so you follow your procedures just like everybody does. You never let your guard down, and they'll execute the steps to safely get out of the spacecraft, and then go back to crew quarters. They'll maintain their quarantine so that they can preserve a launch opportunity, and then they'll wait for more information from the team.
Yeah, you talk about how the team rehearses all different scenarios. It truly is. I mean, can you talk for those who might not know, can you talk about the process of, simulating all the things that could go wrong so that if it does happen, everything is kind of rote. It's kind of just like muscle memory, and you don't really have to think too much because you just know it like the back of your hand.
Absolutely. That is the most important part about being well trained. And it's not only the astronauts, it's the entire team. So you see that the pad team knows exactly what they need to be doing. You can hear the comm from ULA. Everybody at their console has specific responsibilities and steps that they need to take. And each member of the team is critical to make sure that we're successful in these type of procedures. And we train to them in simulations, scrubbing, and pretty every contingency that we can think of, we will actually run through. In the few instances where I've been involved in an actual contingency or an emergency, you're right. The training really takes over. You maintain focus, you execute your procedures, and it's really not until after that's all done that you realize that...
Hey, Houston Starliner, we're standing by, as we said. We did go ahead and unstrap. Curious if we're going to run anything in the scrub recycle procedure as you're looking forward, since we didn't get very far.
Starliner Houston, loud and clear. We are running it. A lot of the events are sort of no perform because we didn't get that far in the count. I will keep you appraised. The main action on your radar will be bringing the suit fan Bravo to off before you jump out.
Yeah, and we're not going to open the cabin vent valve or anything, I'm assuming, as well.
Negative, yeah. Hatch is open, so none of that applies.
Yeah, that's what I see. Okay, thanks.
And that was our Capcom capsule communicator, Josh Kutrick, who will be flying on Starliner 1. He's the Capcom for Ascent, and he was just talking to Butch about the scrub recycle procedures that he has in his checklist.
And Capcom is the voice that we've primarily been hearing talk to the astronauts, correct?
Yes, during the comm checks, you'll hear a lot of different folks talking on the loops. But really, once the launch happens and they get to orbit, then the only person talking to the crew is the Capcom.
And LC Slick on Channel 1.
Go ahead, Slick.
Yeah, we're getting ready for crew egress, so we would be good for the CTV to come to the pad gate and hold there.
Roger. OSM, LC?
OSM.
Roger. Notify crew transport convoy to return to pad, permit entry into the BDA, and ask them to hold at the pad gate, please.
Roger.
Call-outs now to have the Astrovan return to the launch pad to pick up the crew once they have egressed. Excuse me.
And you can see Butch and Sunny, they're unstrapped and visors are up. They're just waiting for the call from ground to turn off that suit fan, which is the fan that's providing air to their suits prior to detaching their suits from the spacecraft and exiting Starliner.
Again, if folks are just joining us, about 12 minutes ago, the launch team has decided to stand down from today's launch attempt. We were targeting 10:34 and 14 seconds Eastern Time for liftoff of NASA's Boeing crew flight test. We now are looking at Commander Butch Wilmore and pilot Sunny Williams. They are in the Starliner spacecraft, awaiting word that they can continue with egress procedures.
Starliner Houston, still with you. No real change. OFM is off. The prop system is not secured, but it's an unknown and an expected config, and we'll still get suit fan Bravo off here before you jump out. Otherwise, just stand by for us.
Yep, we're standing by. Thank you.
The reason the launch team is standing down today is so that they can evaluate an oxygen relief valve on Centaur. That's the second stage of ULA's Atlas V rocket. Nicole, some of those call-outs we just heard over the operational communication loops, or nets as they're called, again, just taking steps towards safing the launch vehicle, right?
Yes, ULA is working towards making sure the launch vehicle is in a good config, and then Mission Control is focusing on Starliner, the spacecraft itself, to make sure that the systems are in the proper configuration before the astronauts exit the spacecraft. And I think you heard the call there from Josh that the final thing will be to turn their suit fans off. And so the controllers in Mission Control, the flight controllers are now sending commands, to the spacecraft to get it in that good config. And then Butch will send that final command for the suit fan.
Throughout the show, we've had commentators across NASA, Boeing, and ULA monitoring the launch. So why don't we head back over to our ULA commentator, Dylan Rice, who continues to monitor what's happening now as we take steps to egress the crew.
Thanks, Megan. Yeah, you've heard some of the communication as the team has gotten into the securing processes here. So from a rocket perspective, really what's going to happen next is we're just going to hold the current configuration of the rocket. We're not going to start detanking. We're not changing any configuration at all until the crew has egressed the capsule and the team has left the pad. There were a couple of
LCOSM.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. You have, per step 90, you have 20 personnel entering BDA at this time.
Roger.
Okay, with that call indicating the crew convoy has now arrived back at the pad. But there were a couple initial securing items that we did early on in the process here, and that was securing our RF systems and then stopping the Centaur engine chill down, given that we're not planning on launching today. Otherwise, the launch vehicle is maintaining a safe configuration until we get the crew and the blue team away from the pad. And in a situation like this, if we see any data signature that is not something that we have seen before, then we are just simply not willing to take any chances with what is our most precious payload. So we're going to take a step back, go review that data, go understand why this signature is different from what is in our previous experience base, and then we'll take whatever action required before we reattempt a launch. So for now, the team is going to continue to watch over the launch vehicle as the crew gets ready to egress the capsule. The 3 members of the ULA Blue team now are going to be standing by, waiting to secure the white room once the crew has egressed Starliner, and then at that point we'll close Starliner up and begin our detanking. So in our planning and in our practice runs, that whole process takes just a little over an hour. So we're I believe we're approximately 15 minutes into that time now. So very shortly we'll be seeing the astronauts egress the capsule and then make their way down the crew access tower back to the van and back over to the ONC for the evening.
And of course, all of our teams do so much training, so many run-throughs, and scrubs are no different. We run through good days, and we also run through scrubs. So this is not the first time these teams are going through these motions, even though this is the first time we have had a crew on Starliner. So they will be going through their procedures for this scrub. I think we saw just a second ago some of the pad team members flipping through, and they're going to be leaving everything in the proper configuration for...
And Houston PLT is egressing. I'm waiting on the suit fan call.
Copy. We still got good video, and we will call you for suit fan Bravo. Thanks.
Okay, up.
All right, so Butch just waiting now while Sunny gets out first. Just like we saw Butch go in first, Sunny come in second. They'll go.
And Starliner, Houston, for CDR this time. We see you getting out. As soon as you are on your way out, you'll go to shut that suit fan Bravo off. Let us know when it's off.
Welcome.
And Sunny making her way out of the spacecraft now. The pad team there to help her get out.
You know, Lauren, just like we talked about when we started the built-in hold as we prepared to load the astronauts, this countdown has really been developed to support not only just 2 astronauts but 5, even 7 astronauts on Starliner, right? So the same thing with the egress procedure. When it comes time to pull astronauts out, the time that we've got allocated could support as many supports pulling a full complement of astronauts off of Starliner. That's not what we're doing today. We've just got Butch and Sunny on board, and so it is possible that we'll be moving much more quickly into our scrub detank operations. But for now, we've got bookmarked that 65 minutes to get the crew off, but probably will not quite take that long, given that we're only pulling two people out of Starliner.
And of course, this happened early enough in the countdown that the pad team was still there. We didn't have to wait for the pad team to return and help them get out. So as Sunny is going through her scrub procedures right now in the white room outside of Starliner, Butch is waiting for the pad team to help him egress the spacecraft.
And again, these are contingency procedures that, just like the launch procedures, we have exercised these contingency procedures as well for launch scrubs and having to come down off the tower and head back to the ONC. So nothing new to this team. This team has been through these procedures, and they're very well understood.
LC Slick on channel 1.
Go ahead, Slick.
Hey, looks like CDR is out. We're going to go do a few things, but we'd be ready to do comm checks with LC on the OSC radio here in a minute, and we'll get the CTV up to the base of the cat.
Roger.
You see Butch is now out of Starliner, back into the white room as they start to detach some of those items that were on his spacesuit.
You know, that previous call we just heard as well, once the astronauts are out of the capsule and the blue team is complete up on the tower, they're not in complete communication, via the hardline communication systems like we've been talking, nets and loops all evening long. So that previous call there was to establish a comm check with the chief launch conductor via the walkie-talkie. So we do have the walkie-talkies available for those periods of time when we're not actually on the hardline communication system. So they'll be executing that comm check shortly. And again, that's per one of our contingency procedures. We have got plans in place to address most problems that come up, and that is one of them. That just make sure your walkie-talkies work before you unplug yourself from the hardline communications systems. And again, those walkie-talkies allowing the team to communicate with the team in the field to communicate with the team back here in the Launch Control Center as they're driving out of the pad and over to the fallback area.
The Astrovan will be there shortly to pick them back up and take them back over to crew quarters. If you are just joining us, we were supposed to be about an hour and 38 minutes away from launch right now, but the teams have decided to stand down today. That's why you see the astronauts in the white room. They were strapped into Starliner, and we have just been going through procedures to get them back out of Starliner and soon headed back to crew quarters. A lot of the things we walked you through earlier, they're doing in reverse right now, just to make sure that everything is in the proper config for the next attempt. You know, Dylan, Sunny recently was talking to media, and she made the comment that one of her...
OSM, LC.
OSM, go ahead, sir.
Roger. Crew transport vehicle is clear to proceed to the CAT.
Roger, copy that.
All right, so the Astrovan will be pulling up to the crew access tower now to come pick up Butch and Sunny. As I was saying, Sunny was recently speaking with the media, and she was telling us that one of her other friends, her astronaut buddies, said, you know, just so you know, in case there's any kind of a scrub, sometimes that's just good to knock the nerves off for everyone, and it could, you know, be good luck to go again another day. So they are veteran astronauts and quite used to how often scrubs do happen in spaceflight. You could see they're laughing there on the left of your screen. So they're in good spirits. Of course, these days are, you know, disappointing for teams,
LC
but
Slick on channel
definitely
1.
not
Go ahead,
something.
Slick.
We're ready for the flight crew and support personnel to perform OSE radio comm checks and to proceed to the ground level. They'll exit the white room and give you a call.
Roger.
And Lauren, as test pilots, you know, they're very familiar with contingency procedures
Yes.
as well. Because when you're testing a new system, obviously there's always going to be some findings, some of them more significant than others. But either way, the test pilots would be in a unique position to expect the unexpected and to be adaptive, which I know both of them are.
And with this being a test flight, even in a scrub situation, all the teams involved are going to be learning things. I'm sure Butch and Sunny will have things to note.
Has arrived at the base of the CAT.
Roger.
The Astrovan is at the base of the crew access tower now. So as you see Butch and Sunny having a conversation with the pad team there, Sure, we will see them starting to head down momentarily. Teams on some of the side nets are telling us the crew egress procedures are complete. Sunny getting some help with her helmet there. All right, they are on the move. They are going to be headed back into the elevator. They are on level 12, so headed back down to the base of the crew access tower, and we'll get back into the Astro van to head back to crew quarters. And with that, we will send it back over to the ladies at the desk, Megan, Dee, and Nicole.
Thank you, Lauren and Dylan, for giving us more insight into today's scrub. Now, so we just saw Sunny and Butch get into the elevator from level 12 here at the crew access tower, and they are now going down to the pad, where, as you just heard, they will get into the Astrovan. Nicole, what are the next procedures, right? So they'll go back to astronaut crew quarters, and what happens then?
So they'll go back there and obviously get out of their spacesuits, and then we can expect a brief. The astronauts will get briefed on the details of the anomaly that was seen on Centaur and information on
at the ground floor and exited the CAT elevator.
Roger.
And information on what the next plan is. And so, hopefully we have an opportunity to launch tomorrow, but we don't have enough information yet to know. But the crew will plan on that, right? They have to always be prepared. And so they will follow their schedule as far as eating and sleeping and other, briefings that they need to obtain. And they'll make sure that they kind of reset themselves. So they'll have a chance to reunite with their immediate family. And again, that's why everybody stays in quarantine, so that even in a situation like this, they can, the support folks as well as family can still be together.
Yeah, everything is choreographed down to the minute. You were talking about their schedule because, again, since this launch is later at night, everything has to shift so that they're awake and ready for launch when it is.
Yes, sleep shift is a big part of it, and even though we see this launch at 22:30, the astronauts have already been up for 5 hours, and once they launch and get to orbit, they still have a lot to do in orbit to test out the systems of Starliner, and so it's a very long day. It's important that they are well rested and ready to go.
And now we see the Astrovan backing up away from the elevator that took the crew to and from level 12 of the crew access tower. Again, on their way to astronaut crew quarters inside the Neil A. Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building. This drive, again, will take about 20 to 25 minutes. Nicole, you mentioned that because of the scrub, they will have time to see their families again. That must be nice to have that opportunity to reconnect with them.
I think it is. There's always, a ton of emotions associated with launch, and maybe you don't realize it at the time, but I remember talking to my husband and son after launch.
Crew transport vehicle has exited the pad gate.
Roger.
And just a comment on how much just energy and excitement. And when you have all those emotions running through your body, it can be quite exhausting. So it'll be nice to have a chance to reunite with their family, as well as the astronauts and the other support personnel back at crew quarters. I'm sure they'll have a nice meal, which I know Butch always comments on the wonderful food and the folks that take care of us at astronaut crew quarters. And so we're thankful to continue to have their support, and then we'll be standing by for the next steps.
Yeah, that's interesting and very correct of you to say that Butch, in the last few days leading up to launch, has been talking about how excited he is for the food here at KSC. So hats off to the chefs at Astronaut Crew Quarters. Butch was looking forward to a meatloaf meal. I'm sure he had it before launch, and Sunny was looking forward to eating some salmon. So at least they'll be treated to another delicious meal at Astronaut Crew Quarters.
And even, the folks all the way from the chefs to the to everybody that keeps the crew corridors up and functioning, this has all been rehearsed and part of a plan. So all these the contingency plans are laid out and in place, and now they just need to be executed.
And you had mentioned that there is an opportunity to launch tomorrow. There's an opportunity to launch May 10th and May 11th as well. We say opportunities to launch because we just know the date and time is reserved on the range. Can you talk to us about that?
Yes, an opportunity really means, from an orbital mechanics standpoint, as far as the spacecraft rendezvousing in a proper profile with the International Space Station and range availability. That's all we know when we say a launch attempt. There's still a lot of other factors, weather often being one of the biggest ones, and then of course the status of the spacecraft and the rocket. Those are the status is unknown right now, and so we'll stand by for further information. And once we have that information, NASA, together with Boeing and ULA, will determine what the next launch attempt will be. So that's kind of the difference when we talk about a launch opportunity versus a launch attempt.
Right. So I'll list, the backup launch opportunities we have. But again, these are just opportunities, as Nicole has been saying, and as well as Dylan.
LC, this is FTS on channel 1.
Go ahead, FTS.
Yeah, step 50 RF FTS and GPS metric tracking is secured.
Roger.
If you're just joining us, about 30 minutes ago.
LCOSM.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. 22 personnel have exited BDA area.
Roger.
About 30 minutes ago, the launch team decided to stand down from today's launch attempt of NASA's Boeing crew flight test. Out of an abundance of caution, the launch team wants to reevaluate an oxygen relief valve on the Centaur, which is the upper stage of the Atlas V rocket. Right now on your screen, you're watching Butch and Sunny and their full security convoy make their way from Launch Pad 41 on the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and they will make their way through Kennedy Space Center to make their way back to Astronaut Crew Quarters. The ULA team will evaluate, again, that valve. And Nicole, you were saying that you expect the crew to get some sort of briefing as to what information the team might have to share with them when they get back to crew quarters.
Absolutely. I expect that they'll get a preliminary briefing as soon as they get changed out of their flight suits or spacesuits, and with just the information that they have. And then they'll set a time for a follow-on briefing. Maybe that will be tonight, maybe it'll be tomorrow. It really depends on the situation. But it's important that the crew is aware of what the issue was, and that they understand the steps that were taken, obviously before they attempt another launch.
We've been saying throughout the broadcast that Butch always likes to ask why. I'm sure he'll be very vocal as we make plans for a next launch attempt.
Absolutely, and rightfully so, I think. The great thing is that we have a great team with Boeing and ULA and NASA, and so everybody will come together and talk about the anomaly and what they've done to address it. and then together we'll make a decision. They'll make a decision when it's appropriate to attempt another launch. And so it's really a team effort, and it's important that we have each member of the team looking at those different opportunities and looking at them from each different perspective. And again, we'll also be taking a look at the weather. So a lot of other factors that will roll into it.
From the host desk here, we can see in the distance some of the lights from the convoy making their way past the press site here where we are sitting, which is across the street from NASA's Vehicle Assembly Building. And then they will make their way to crew quarters. Nicole, you said again that this was all prepared for and thought of in case this did happen, and we did see very quickly how everyone knew what to do.
Yes, sir. Talking with the Denver team and our team, we're probably going to want to do that troubleshooting that we had come up with on this SRV once we get the pad cleared. So I'd like permission to take that to 6 and get that discussed, get you a recommendation.
Roger, please, community development team, provide a recommendation. I'd estimate at this time it'd be about 30 minutes. We'll be ready to start detanking.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Absolutely. Everything is rehearsed from what we call nominal operations, where everything goes perfectly smooth, to little issues, so that everybody's aware how to troubleshoot those and what their roles and responsibilities are, as well as a scrub, as well as major contingencies. We really practice all of those different scenarios so that the team is prepared. And I think you'll see, or you can recognize today how calm everybody was, and they're executing their procedures. Everybody knows that their role. And quite quickly, we talked about the situation. Butch and Sunny were informed, decision was made, and then once they started the scrub process, they were actually outside of the spacecraft quite quickly. So really just a testament to the professionalism and the preparedness that we see from this team. And I think we see the Astro van passing the press site and the VAB right now.
Crew quarters, probably another 10-minute drive from here. This crew flight test, a historic one, only the 6th time that NASA will fly a new crew transportation vehicle. As you said, Nicole, I'm sure Butch and Sunny might be a bit disappointed, but they know as veteran space flyers, this is part of the process. You know, everything has to be right, and a particular date and time isn't the final say at all.
Oh, you're absolutely right. There's nothing about a particular date and a time. You know, when's the right time is to launch is when the rocket's ready, when the spacecraft is ready, when the crew is ready. That's all that really matters. So it's just part of the business. You know, we are literally launching humans into space, and it is rocket science. So it's not easy, and we just appreciate the professionalism of the team, keeping a close eye on all the instrumentation and identifying any potential issues early. So that we can do the right thing and make sure that when we do launch, that it is as safe as feasibly possible.
Yeah, it's a good point to, again, remind folks, yes, this is literal rocket science, and sometimes might be easy to forget that because a lot of it is a well-oiled machine. Teams, again, proficient and ready in all of their respective roles, that sometimes it might look easy.
I think you're right. Sometimes I think, especially recently in the past, maybe 5 years or so, we've had so many launches. I mean, there was a launch earlier today. It's absolutely incredible, and it's just a great reminder that this will never be routine. It never can be. It is a very it's a very dangerous business, and that's why we have professional teams doing all the checks and making sure it's that we mitigate the risk the best that we can. And so it's a great reminder to never take that for granted.
Anything you might want to say to Butch and Sunny tonight? I mean, actually, do you plan to maybe have an opportunity to touch base with them, and what might you say to them?
I'll shoot them a text, but I'm sure they'll be quite busy with seeing their family, and I'm sure that from their family and friends, you can imagine how many texts and phone calls they're going to get. But I think it's important that they maintain focus, and they know that too. So I think a lot of folks, especially in the astronaut corps, will kind of just leave them alone, knowing that they have a lot to deal with, a lot going on. They need to stay in the game because potentially they could launch tomorrow, since there is a launch opportunity. And I can just imagine Butch with a smile on his face saying, "Yeah, well, this is human spaceflight. That's the way it goes," And he and Sunny thinking of this as just another great rehearsal for the entire team to walk through. And the next time they have an opportunity to walk out and ingress the spacecraft, you would expect it to go even smoother, and they're going to feel even more comfortable doing that. So I think that's the correct mindset to have. That's the best way to go about it.
He actually just reminded me, Butch, in one of the recent interviews, was asked, what do you think of setbacks? If there's a setback, what do you think of that? And he goes, they're not setbacks, they're steps forward. So as you said, another rehearsal, another opportunity to fine-tune anything to make sure that the next time is even better than the last.
Absolutely, and a great reminder that this is a developmental flight test. And this is, as you mentioned, we've only done this 6 other times in the history of humankind, and so it is a big deal. And every time we learn something and we overcome that challenge and we move forward, and that is a step in the right direction. That is progress.
We're going to see the convoy turn left here in just a few seconds, and then it's a straight shot back to the operations and checkout building here at Kennedy Space Center, where the west wing of the 3rd floor, that is the astronaut crew quarters, a historic area of the ONC, where Butch and Sunny will go back to for the night.
Butch and Sunny have extensive experience launching. Obviously, each of them have launched twice to space, but they've also supported other astronauts launching from Kennedy Space Center multiple times. Butch specifically was a Cape Crusader back in the day, so he was, specifically a crew member that came out to support launches. And that's a lot of back and forth, and I'm sure he's seen a lot of scrubs and taken apart in successful launches and days when it's just not going to be our day to launch and you're going to come back and launch another day. So, he's seen it from the perspective of a crew member as well as the perspective of a support astronaut. In fact, Butch has flown the T-38 across the Gulf of Mexico 458 times.
Oh, wow.
And you know how I know that? He counts every time and tells us. Yes.
Very meticulous.
As a true naval aviator, yes, he's very proud of it. But it really just shows his extensive experience that he has in human spaceflight.
Mm-hmm. And Sunny too. Again, we've been listening to their backgrounds throughout this broadcast, and they both bring so much knowledge and experience to this moment. So, really honored to get to watch them take us through this developmental program and this flight test. And when they launch, it'll be really exciting to see.
Absolutely, and you see their demeanor, right? They're very calm, cool, and collected, shaking hands with everybody, and that's what a veteran astronaut does. And they really set the example for all the astronauts and really, all humans, that how to deal with a situation that didn't go exactly as planned. You do it just like Butch and Sunny are doing here.
We're tracking the Astrovan pulling into the parking lot of the Operations and Checkout Building here at Kennedy Space Center. Make a couple of turns, and then we'll see the Astrovan back in front of those doors we saw Butch and Sunny walk out of about 2 hours ago. Looks like we have a couple of NASA astronauts there for their arrival.
Oh, there's Mike Fink. We just saw him, Mike Fink, walking up. So he's still obviously there every step of the way to support the astronauts.
Yeah, after we saw him leave the pad in the Astrovan, Mike went back to the Boeing Mission Control Center here at Kennedy. It's the building we pointed out right next to the Vehicle Assembly Building. And he was going to watch launch from there. So I'm sure after the scrub was called, he made a point to be back here to welcome Sunny and Butch. Yeah, so quick final. And if you're just joining us, welcome to Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where at about 8:34 this evening, the launch team decided to stand down from today's launch attempt of NASA's Boeing crew flight test. That was after the ULA team decided to reevaluate an oxygen relief valve that's on the Centaur upper stage. So that's the upper stage of the Atlas V rocket. If you have been watching us, you saw just a few minutes ago NASA astronauts Commander Butch Wilmore as well as pilot Sunny Williams. They have exited the Astrovan after the Astrovan picked them up from Launch Pad 41 and took them back to astronaut crew quarters, where they will spend the night and get updated as to the next steps to when another launch attempt can be made. I want to open it up to the hostess here now. Nicole, any final thoughts as we await some information about what happened tonight and again, the steps moving forward?
Of course, just a really professional job done by the team in identifying a potential issue and then initiating the scrub. It was executed as planned, and the astronauts are now back at crew quarters, and they'll receive a briefing on the next launch opportunity, and hopefully that is soon. But in the meantime, we'll be standing by, and I know we all feel maybe a little bit disappointed, but this is a human space flight, and that's the way things go. There's a lot that goes into launching humans safely from the planet. And so I think that I just feel, thankful that this potential issue was caught early and that everybody is safe. And we're looking forward to another attempt soon.
Yeah, well said, Nicole. And Dee, from Boeing's standpoint, anything you'd like to say?
Absolutely. Of course, safety is our top priority. So, and this is no different. We really appreciate ULA's partnership throughout the Boeing Starliner program and their work with commercial crew. And, we'll fly when we're ready.
Right. All right, so with that, we want to pull up on the screen right now the link to the Commercial Crew blog, and that is where we will post the latest information about an upcoming press conference that we do plan to have. We do want to be able to share with you what we do know about the reason why we stood down today from launch. So again, take a look at your screen, blogs.nasa.gov/Boeing crew flight test. Again, that's where you can go to find out when we will have that press conference, which will be on NASA TV. So again, you are watching NASA TV right now, so this is the place where you'll be able to watch that press conference. We're aiming for about an hour or so, but again, we do want to give our teams as much time as they need to gather the most accurate and timely information they can for you. And again, we will share that at that upcoming press conference. But for now, again, we want to thank you so much for sticking with us and watching our live coverage of the first launch attempt of Boeing's crew flight test, NASA and Boeing's crew flight test. But until then, and that press conference, we hope to see you on there for more information about when.
And if you're just joining us, you are looking at a live view of Slick 41 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, where the United Launch Alliance has officially scrubbed tonight to launch. The crew has now egressed the vehicle and has now journeyed back to crew quarters and is re-entering quarantine. We are awaiting word on when the press conference, which was originally going to be a post-launch press conference, which is now a post-scrub conference, will be conducted. We are expecting that in the next hour and a half, but as you just heard there from NASA's spokesperson, that they will do this once they are ready and once they have information to share. So stay tuned to that on social media on whether we'll be able to bring that to you live. I'm currently located in the UK, and it is a beautiful 2:30 in the morning, but if it's your first time here, welcome. My name is Zach, the founder and host here at the Launch Pad, and we always say it, scrubs are better than RUDs, and especially when you're flying crew, you do not want to take a risk. And a huge shout out to the entire ULA team and Boeing team for making sure that we keep these two brave astronauts safe and take time to evaluate what needs to happen. A O2 relief valve issue on the Atlas V's Centaur stage. That's the second stage of the Atlas V vehicle. We do have another opportunity, basically 24 hours from today's opportunity, and then backups on the 10th and 11th. We're awaiting when they'll be able to determine whether they'll go for another attempt here in 24 hours or if we'll have a longer delay. So make sure you stay tuned for more updates here on the Launchpad and on our social media. Make sure you join us over on the TOP Discord. It's free to join. That's where our community hangs out in between streams. And make sure you follow us over on Twitter at TOPN_official. A huge shout out to our entire TOP Rocket Chaser team. They were all out across the Space Coast, navigating different positions. Gavin visiting the press site for the first time. One of our teams out on crutches. All working incredibly hard to bring you the best possible coverage of the launch of Starliner on its CFT flight. And a huge thank you to all of them. Hopefully get some rest, and we'll see if we try this again tomorrow or if we have a multi-day delay, which, to be honest, we kind of hope for, because then we can reset our remotes, as we were trying some really exciting things with some remote cameras. But obviously, safety is priority 1, and then mission objectives is priority 2. Remote cameras are priority 3. If you haven't yet, make sure you engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, docking, undocking, or return to Earth. We will bring back our 24/7 pad camera here in the next little bit, so stay tuned for that. Once we have updates on when the next launch attempt will happen, we'll get the clock synced and running, and we'll bring you updates from them. But for now, from our TOP remote studio currently stationed in the UK, my name's Zach, and we will see you next time, because space is better together. Good night.